Long Chen left on his own, speeding off toward his previous target. The Dragonblood warriors had essentially finished forming up, with each group having at least 5 squads. In each of those groups were at least 2 people on the level of captains, so they should be safe. Now, Long Chen was setting off on his own because he didn't sense any supreme experts. Guarant's luck had given him a reminder. His bad luck would cover up other people's good luck. By leaving them, their chances of running into treasures should increase a bit. Several days later, Long Chen arrived at his target area. The scene he saw before him made his heart shake. This was a giant spring. There were 2 mountain ranges on both sides of it, looking like an eye from above. The spring had black and white mist revolving on top of it, looking like a giant Taiji symbol. The white mist was full of vitality, while the black mist was full of death. They were blending together, yet still separate. When he descended from the sky, he found that the spring had its own laws. While it wasn't so big looking from above, when he got close, he found that it was practically limitless. This spring seemed to fill the entire world. He didn't know if he had shrunk or if it had grown. There is actually a place within this world that manifests the cycle of life and death. The divine families actually didn't share this secret with us. Long Chen couldn't help growing enraged upon sensing the power of this spring. The Long family hadn't told him about this, but the corrupt path and the ancient family alliance's disciples had both been aware of it. Boss. The Dragonblood warriors who had already arrived came over when they saw him. Was there a battle? Long Chen saw they still had blood on them, and their auras were in a very lively state. It was dangerous. As soon as we arrived, corrupt experts attacked us. They had broken through to the 4th step. If the Zither fairy hadn't interfered, we would have taken some heavy losses, said the squad leader. Xiezi. Long Chen sensed the surroundings. There did seem to be some mystical energy remaining in the air that belonged to Xiezi. Where is she? The Zither fairy immediately rushed off after helping us resolve the ambush. It seemed that she was in a hurry. Boss, we were late. Everyone else who entered the star-field divine world rushed straight here. The corrupt path left behind 2,000 of their disciples to ambush us. With them being in the 4th step and controlling samsara power, we would have been at a disadvantage without the Zither fairy, said another squad leader. Upon reaching the 4th step, the samsara power of a nether passage expert would not just increase their power, but it would also form a cycle that gave them limitless power. With the Dragonblood warriors still in the 3rd step, they were unable to hold them back. In the brief ambush, 10,000 disciples of the Martial Heaven Alliance had died. The corrupt path and the ancient family alliance knew about this. Only the sea demon race seems to be like us. What is the Ye family playing at? Long Chen sank into thought. He had killed the 6-horned sea serpent's left and right arms but hadn't found any information about this life and death spring in their soul fragments. Could it be that the Ye family was using the sea demon race to slow him down? Were they being used to stall the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples? After being 1 step behind, they would only fall further and further behind. One of the groups has been attacked. Suddenly, the compasses let off a warning sound. However, the warning then stopped a short while later. It was a little sneak attack, not enough to shake the entire group. The other side fled. The report quickly came from the group that had been attacked. Have all the groups remain vigilant and rush straight here. There's no need to search for more treasures, ordered Long Chen. They had been schemed against. The Dragonblood Legion was now forced into a very passive position. With many others having broken through to the 4th step due to this spring, they were at an immense disadvantage. More groups arrived. One of them was led by Yu Zifeng and Gu Yang. They brought a squad of the Xian beasts and the 4 squads of the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples. The others also arrived quickly. Seeing everyone was safe and sound, they sighed in relief. Just as they had been approaching this area, all their groups had been attacked by small groups of experts. Those experts came from the Ancient Family Alliance and the Corrupt Path. They were only in groups of 1 or 2,000, but they had all broken through to the 4th step. Meng Qi and the others were strong enough to force them to flee, but not before they killed a few people. The ordinary disciples were too weak compared to them. Meng Qi and the others naturally couldn't chase them down for fear of an ambush. They could only raise their vigilance and press onward. They faced quite a few sneak attacks from them again, and they did manage to slay a few of them before they fled, but the continuous attacks were infuriating. Against so many fourth-step nether passage experts, even Meng Qi and the others were unable to fully stop them. After all, they were in control of samsara power. Their combined power was immense. Their continuous sneak attacks had been so enraging that Gu Yang had almost chased after them, but Yu Zifeng had pulled him back. These bastards are all hateful. Tang Wan'er stamped her foot furiously. Long Chun consoled everyone. We've fallen for their scheme. By being broken into pieces, our enemies have managed to grasp an opening. They knew that we would need some time to gather back together after entering. Adding in some sneak attacks forced us to be even more cautious, with the sea demon race in particular giving us even more pressure. Their whole plan was to stall us while they arrived here and broke through before us. But if they've managed to advance, why not stand guard over this place to stop us from coming? Asked Meng Qi. The Corrupt Path and the Ancient Family Alliance had a full 1,000,000 experts inside the Star-Field Divine World at the moment, with the Martial Heaven Alliance and the Xian Beasts only outnumbering them by a tiny amount. 1,000,000 fourth-step nether passage experts was more than enough to crush 1,100,000 third-step nether passage experts. It's not so simple. The Divine Families are using the Corrupt Path and the Ancient Family Alliance, but the Corrupt Path and the Ancient Family Alliance aren't going to be used for nothing. The Star-Field Divine World is full of treasures. Their main force has definitely moved onto the next place, estimated Long Chen. Then we're the last ones here? Raged Gu Yang. We should be second to last. They're also the idiots from the sea demon race. Let's just hurry and make our advancements here. This life and death spring has a white area representing life energy and a black area representing death energy. To enter the fourth step, the first thing is to balance your life and death energy. After that, you can step into the core of the spring. That is where the life and death energy is the strongest. We've already been thrown behind, so we have to catch up, said Long Chen. Everyone quickly entered the spring. They went to the life area because they were currently lacking life energy in the death realm. The Xian Beasts joined in as well. This life and death energy was crucial to their advancement. Although their realms were different, they still needed the life and death energy. Wild, your brother Long has brought you some good stuff. As everyone entered the spring, only Wild stayed outside. Long Chen took out the corpses of 3 13th rank beasts, delighting Wild. These corpses were so tough that even divine items couldn't pierce them. Wild's teeth were tougher than divine items, but even he was having some trouble eating them. He had to tear off pieces of flesh and chew for a long time before swallowing. It's delicious. Brother Long, you're great. Wild excitedly hugged Long Chen. In truth, Wild didn't know anything about taste. It was delicious to him only because the flesh was so strong. Seeing Wild eating the flesh of 13th rank beasts made Long Chen feel a chill. Wild had truly grown terrifying. I'm glad you like it. I'll find some more for you in the future, but you should put these away for now. Ration them while you stand watch. If anyone tries to disturb us, kill them, said Long Chen. All right, go train. Leave things here to me. Wild patted his chest confidently, but his hand was still bloody from his eating, leaving an imprint. Long Chen nodded and entered the spring as well. He began to absorb the life energy. Just at that moment, a group of people came rushing over. Rays of divine light pierced through the air toward the spring. Courting death. Long Chen furiously shot up. These people were intentionally causing a ruckus so that they couldn't focus on cultivation. With everyone in the life and death spring, they couldn't dodge. It was unknown what origins this spring had, but after entering, their bodies naturally entered a cultivation state. They would have to leave in order to enter a combat-ready state. By the time they charged out of the spring, their attackers had fled. They seemed to have transportation discs on them that brought them away as soon as they fled. Bastards, raged Gu Yang. The only way for them to effectively cultivate here was to enter a state of forgetting everything else. It would take far longer now since they were furious after being attacked. How hateful! They're slowing us down while they go in search of treasures, said Tangwan. Cloud, why don't you guard this place? Kill anyone who approaches, said Meng Qi. With Cloud's speed, those people would be killed as soon as they got close. No need, said Xiachen. They have transportation talismans that will make speed useless. Guoran and I can set up a formation to kill them. I'll need 3,000 people to help me. Xiachen and Guoran set off with 3,000 Dragonblood warriors to set up a formation. Long Chen ordered everyone not to fall for it. They had to calm down and use this place to advance to the fourth step. Xiachen and Guoran got to work, but halfway through their setup, another batch of disciples from the Ancient Family Alliance attacked. However, as soon as they appeared, a batch of bombs that Guoran had set up exploded, blasting them to pieces. Following the explosions were some poison arrows. Even those in control of life and death energy couldn't ignore that poison. That batch of sneak attackers were blocked and only managed to launch a few attacks from a great distance before fleeing. But still, quite a few people were disturbed from their cultivation state, flames of anger surging in their eyes. On the other hand, Long Chen was already in his cultivation state, his divine ring open behind him. The life energy poured into him. Several attacks were aimed at Long Chen, but Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wan'er, and the others blocked it for him. They had decided to stand guard over Long Chen so that he could advance first. As Long Chen absorbed the life energy, he tried to bring some of the spring water into the primal chaos space. But he was disappointed to find that once it exited this world, the spring water's energy completely vanished. His thought of bringing the entire spring away with him was extinguished. He could only focus on cultivating. Others were absorbing it slowly, but he was sucking the life energy in crazily. Suddenly, blinding rays of light lit up from the distance. Runic swords pierced through the air, slaughtering a new batch of sneak attackers. Xia Chen's formation was complete. He was standing guard, not even giving the sneak attackers an opportunity to attack. Several more attempts occurred, leaving behind batches of corpses on the ground. Just as it seemed that the Ancient Family Alliance's disciples had given up, corrupt experts came charging at the barrier recklessly. Using their own comrades' lives as shields, they managed to tear an opening within Xia Chen's formation and charge in. These corrupt experts were practically crazy. They launched a few attacks, and seeing that they couldn't escape, they decided to kill themselves in self-detonations. Fuck, another 3,000 warriors get over here. We'll kill these bastards. Raged Guoran. These experts that had reached the fourth step were too powerful. They needed more people if they wanted to keep them out. At the same time as he was infuriated, he was shocked. If the corrupt path and the Ancient Family Alliance had left their main forces here, they would probably have been wiped out. Another 3,000 Dragonblood warriors joined in. Xia Chen clenched his teeth and took out even more formation discs. In the end, the formation became a solid shield that blocked over 10 further attempts at breaking through. Suddenly, the spring began to shake. Countless bubbles began to float out of it. It was like it was boiling. Boss has balanced his life and death energy. He's ready to break through. A vertical line appeared within Long Chen's divine ring. On the left side it was black, and on the right side it was white. Neither side was able to enter the other. This was a manifestation of reaching a balanced state of life and death energy. However, for others, this kind of phenomenon would occur within their heavenly Tao manifestations. But since Long Chen wasn't an Empyrean, it occurred within his divine ring. At this moment, Yu Zifeng, Yu Zhiqiu, Chu Yao, Song Mingyuan, and the others also began to enter this state. Long Chen, don't even think about reaching the samsara realm in this lifetime. Suddenly, the sky fractured. A bloody spear instantly pierced through Xia Chen's formation. Heaven and earth rumbled. Tian Xiezi. Long Chen's heart sank. This scheme was well planned. The heavenly genius of the corrupt path, Tian Xiezi, had actually appeared here. After reaching the samsara realm, Tian Xiezi's manifestation was no longer the slightest bit unclear. There was a giant divine statue of crystal clarity within his manifestation. Divine energy came from his manifestation, infecting the rest of the world. Even the laws of the world were affected. His manifestation, it's fully awakened, exclaimed Meng Qi. Tian Xiezi's aura was completely different from before. His manifestation had changed at its source. It was no longer illusory but real. The statue within his manifestation felt like a god. A feeling of inferiority and insignificance infected people's wills. Longchen, did you think that we would allow you to advance to the fourth step just like this? How naive. We were unable to break the laws of the yin-yang spirit spring, but we won't be allowing you to take advantage of it. All of you will die today. Are you prepared? Asked Tian Xiezi disdainfully. He was just like a god looking down on them. Longchen exited his cultivation state. As his body slowly rose in the air, evil moon appeared in his hand and scales were covering his entire body. You actually gave up your chance to search for treasures to disturb me? Disturb you? Tian Xiezi suddenly laughed as if he had heard the world's funniest joke. Longchen, I didn't think that you were so stupid. Do you not realize what kind of situation you are in? Tian Xiezi's spear suddenly twisted toward Longchen. Although it was just a casual flick of his wrist, Longchen's expression changed. He was forced back several steps. Tian Xiezi laughed. Haha, now do you understand? In this state where your yin and yang are completely balanced, your own life energy and death energy are countering each other. In this state, you are unable to achieve samsara. Your current power has now dropped to less than 80%. What are you going to use to fight me now? Boss. Guoran and the others all started. They didn't know about this problem. With Longchen weakened and Tian Xiezi having advanced to the fourth step, a huge difference had been created between them. Longchen smiled and indicated for everyone not to worry. Looking at Tian Xiezi, he said, "Call out that fellow from your corrupt path. You alone are unable to kill me." Tian Xiezi sneered. He raised his blood spear. Longchen, you're too conceited. I have awoken my manifestation. Corrupt king overlooks the heavens. Killing you is simple. The instant he stated the name of his manifestation, the statue behind him quivered and breathed out a wave of evil air. In that instant, he seemed to be a disciple of a god, a representative whose will came from their god. Haha. Longchen also laughed, his laugh full of disdain. If you really had that ability, you wouldn't have been hiding like a dog here waiting for me to balance my life and death energy, right? Tian Xiezi's expression sank. It was true. He had been hoping to have a real fight with Longchen. He wanted to use his power to beat him and wipe away his previous humiliation. However, a certain person refused to allow him to do that, forcing him to wait until Longchen was weakened. Tian Xiezi was infuriated, but he couldn't retort. What is it? It seems you feel aggrieved. Don't tell me that the arrogant Tian Xiezi that once swept through the world has now become someone's dog? Said Longchen lightly, seemingly seeing through Tian Xiezi's inner heart. Fuck off. Tian Xiezi furiously stabbed his spear. It was like the fang of a fiend, containing a powerful curse as it stabbed toward Longchen. A sharp sound made people clap their hands over their ears. Right off the bat, Tian Xiezi had used one of his sharpest killing blows. You're the one who's going to die. Longchen sneered. He slashed Evil Moon 3 times, creating 3 saber images in front of him that merged together. However, even this triple defense was unable to stop Tian Xiezi's attack. With this manifestation, Tian Xiezi was backed by the power of a god. With your current power, you're just an ant in front of me. I'll return the humiliation you gave me tenfold. Tian Xiezi roared. Thinking of all that had happened between the two of them, he suddenly dove toward Longchen like a hawk. Boom! Longchen slashed Evil Moon, only to be sent flying by a simple kick from Tian Xiezi. Do you see? This is the difference between us now. Even if you weren't weakened, I could still crush you like a fly. I've stepped into the samsara realm, so the cycle of yin and yang will wear your power down until you have nothing else. What are you going to use to fight me? Tian Xiezi arrogantly stood there, looking down on Longchen, not seeming to be in a rush to kill him. Instead, he wanted to fully enjoy the sight of Longchen's despair. No wonder. I knew I wasn't so weak. So stepping into the samsara realm has such a benefit, sighed Longchen. Ants like you can't stop me. Today I will end your legend. By cutting off your head, I will show the world that your legend is nothing more than a joke. Tian Xiezi spread his hands. The blood spear slowly floated in his manifestation, and divine energy surged out of it, locking down Long Chen. Long Chen, do you know? I'm really angry that I have to kill someone as weak as you, stated Tian Xiezi. Even if I kill you, it will clearly be a case of someone powerful bullying the weak. That's an insult to me. Divine energy poured into Tian Xiezi's spear. It pointed toward Long Chen, rumbling with power. This was an attack that could destroy heaven and earth if it wished. But in the face of this terrifying attack, Long Chen smiled. He cocked his head at Tian Xiezi. How amazing! Just what kind of status does that fellow have to make you feel so aggrieved? It's shocking. Tian Xiezi's manifestation rumbled. As astral winds raged, Tian Xiezi roared. You can't do anything even if I tell you. I'm just a divine son, someone who is simply a servant of the god. But he is the reincarnation of the 7th generation corrupt god. He sealed himself for tens of thousands of years. He is a true god who will lead the corrupt path to its glory. Your righteous path will end in this era. This information shocked everyone. A reincarnation of a god? Wouldn't that be an unrivaled existence in this world? Bullshit. A god must descend. That is in defiance of the laws. You're lying, shouted Xia Chen. Haha. Tian Xiezi laughed crazily. You damn ants, are you worth me lying to? The 7th generation corrupt god chose not to ascend and instead undergo nirvanic rebirth to become a different person. His ascension was an act to trick fools like you. He gave up his chance to become a god and instead reincarnated to start a new life. He isn't even a god now. He had to restart everything. Who would pay such a price? Demanded Xia Chen. The heights that a god could achieve were not things that people like them could imagine. But they all knew of the laws of the martial heaven continent. Anyone who reached that level would be forced to a higher plane. It was said that that plane was the undying world of gods and immortals. Even a god could not disobey the laws of the martial heaven continent. After ascending, they could not return. The 7th generation corrupt god had acted like he was ascending, only to secretly undergo nirvanic rebirth. That was in defiance of the heavens. By undergoing reincarnation, he would have to start from the beginning and could die at any moment. Just why would he pay such a price? It was to trick a sovereign, right? Said Long Chen. This statement startled people. How was that possible? There were no gods in the times of the sovereigns. The 7th generation corrupt god had existed before the sovereigns. Long Chen looked closely at Tian Xiezi and saw his expression twitch. He smiled. The 7th generation corrupt god used his body as a seed to undergo reincarnation. But that requires going down the path of reincarnation. It is impossible to immediately be reborn without walking that path. After being reborn, he found himself in the same era as a sovereign, and not daring to compete with the sovereign, he chose to seal himself. He used the corrupt god cemetery to nourish himself, waiting for years until he could finally accumulate enough power to completely transform. Now that the chi flow of the world has changed, it is the best opportunity for him to come out. As for you, the person who should have been the leader of the corrupt path, you have been demoted to a mere side character. You can only listen to his orders like a dog. I feel sorry for you. Long Chen shook his head and sighed so dramatically. Hence, despite knowing that it was intentional, Tian Xiezi couldn't help being infuriated. Shut your mouth. Tian Xiezi was the heavenly genius of the corrupt path, someone who had been sealed in his generation for years. The future of the corrupt path was supposed to belong to him, but now he had become a side character. He was filled with resentment, but there was nothing he could do about it. It doesn't matter who the leader of the corrupt path is. Your righteous path will still be wiped out. Master Ye Ming wanted me to only kill you, but now I've decided to kill all of you. Tian Xiezi smiled as he looked at the dragon blood warriors. His manifestations suddenly shuddered. The power that he had been accumulating all this time blasted out toward the dragon blood warriors. The world's #1 legion will be wiped out by my hands today. Rumbling rang out intermixed with Tian Xiezi's crazed laughter. Brothers, bring out your true ability. Don't let others misjudge you. Long Chen's icy voice rang out. The Dragonblood warriors had long since prepared themselves for battle. They all summoned their manifestations, and the dragons within their manifestations roared furiously. Their power exploded like a volcano, pouring toward the front where Guoran was waiting with his crossed blades. Those blades lit up like blinding suns. Dragonblood cross-slash. The Dragonblood warriors' power surged toward Guoran. Guoran's armor had been modified an additional 3 times because the Dragonblood warriors had grown increasingly powerful. If he didn't upgrade it, he wouldn't be able to endure taking in their terrifying power. Boom. The combined power of 12,000 Dragonblood warriors smashed into Tian Xiezi's spear. As a result, the sky was torn apart. Even the stars in the sky shuddered. Tian Xiezi's spear was blown back, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. When he grabbed his spear, he coughed up another mouthful of blood and smashed into a distant mountain. He pierced straight through it and continued through the mountain range. This Dragonblood cross-slash was the only technique in this world capable of perfectly merging the power of over 12,000 experts into an attack capable of destroying heaven and earth. Nice! Guoran cried out excitedly. This attack was stronger than he had expected. Even Tian Xiezi had been blown back. However, that joy was short-lived as Tian Xiezi came flying out of the ground. His hair was a mess and there was blood on his chest. That attack had been so powerful that despite circulating his samsara power and grinding down its power, he was still injured. Alright, I underestimated you. The combined power of a group of ants actually isn't bad. Since you want to resist, I'll break you one by one so you can all die painfully. Tian Xiezi was charging over, not giving the Dragonblood warriors a chance to accumulate power. This time, his bone spear was aiming to kill a portion of them in one go. Scram! A rough shout rang out, and a bone club smashed through the air. It was like a godly pestle. Wild had transformed into a giant blocking Tian Xiezi's path. Scram! Tian Xiezi furiously changed the target of his attack to Wild, his samsara power erupting. Boom! The bone club smashed into the blood spear. Following the ear-piercing sound, Wild was knocked back several steps. As for Tian Xiezi, his momentum was stopped, and his blood was flipping inside of him. He was infuriated. Corrupt king possession, divine power shatters the heavens. The statue within Tian Xiezi's manifestations suddenly split apart. Divine light bathed him, igniting his power. Die! The reason Tian Xiezi was igniting his divine power was because he suddenly had a bad feeling. That mysterious man, Ye Ming, actually hadn't ordered him to kill Long Chen. His orders had been to disturb Long Chen and then run once it was done. However, how could a divine son like Tian Xiezi stoop to such a lowly level? He wanted to kill all of them, so he ignored Ye Ming's orders. As the Dragonblood cross-slash and Wild's power had far surpassed his expectations, the feeling of unease grew stronger. He didn't want to stall any longer. Suddenly, the void rumbled. A giant skeleton larger than a mountain appeared in front of Tian Xiezi. It looked like the skeleton of a giant beast, but it was as if it was alive. It opened its mouth, and a giant wind blade spun out, breaking the limits of the void. What? Tian Xiezi was shocked. This skeleton's aura was something that even frightened him. It was clearly a terrifying existence above the Nether Passage realm. He hastily retreated and threw the bone spear at the skeleton. He didn't dare to keep hold of it, afraid that the backlash could kill him. Despite his arrogance, Tian Xiezi didn't dare to challenge an existence above the Nether Passage realm. He could only retreat. The bone spear was blown back. Amidst a storm of broken space, the wind blade exploded, unleashing a chi wave that sent Tian Xiezi flying. However, a sharp light appeared in his eyes. He grabbed his bone spear. So it's nothing more than a rotten corpse. It won't change your fate of being killed today. With this one attack, Tian Xiezi realized that this skeleton was something that had existed for countless years. It had less than 1/10 of its original power left, so any fear he had just vanished. However, just at that moment, Long Chen appeared in front of him. Lightning covered his entire body, and he stabbed a giant lightning spear at Tian Xiezi. At the same time, A sea of lightning poured out behind him, and millions of lightning spears shot out of it. Tian Xiezi swung his spear, unleashing a wave of blood-colored light that shattered the lightning spears. As soon as he shattered Long Chen's attack, his spear moved to perfectly block Wild's bone club. However, Wild's pure physical power ignored all laws and sent him flying again. The giant skeleton that Meng Qi was controlling attacked once more, forcing Tian Xiezi back again. Suddenly, a blood-colored figure streaked across the battlefield. Two of its sabers hacked toward Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi instantly realized that it was Guoran in his armor. Die! Tian Xiezi was infuriated. Guoran was nothing more than an insignificant character to him. For him to come at him now was an insult. What shocked him though was that his full-strength attack merely sent Guoran flying. He wasn't injured at all. Hence, Tian Xiezi looked down to see that the Dragonblood warriors had their hands clasped together and seemed to be in a state of meditation. Their power was flowing into Guoran. Tian Xiezi quickly decided that his first target had to be the Dragonblood warriors. Not only would that cut off Guoran's support, but it would definitely cause panic amongst his enemies. However, his body had just moved when two cold rays of sword qi slashed down at him. One of them contained such a cold ice energy that it froze the space around him. Yi Zhiqiu and Yu Zifeng were attacking at the same time. Corrupt Blood Seal. Tian Xiezi blocked Yu Zifeng's sword qi with his spear, while his left hand formed a seal, causing runes to condense into another blood spear that struck Yi Zhiqiu's sword qi. Yi Zhiqiu's attack contained such terrifying ice energy that he didn't dare to touch it directly. If that ice qi invaded his body, it would slow down his movements. Even in the Samsara realm, he didn't dare to risk it. Both rays of sword qi exploded and ice crystals hung in the air like diamond dust. As the dust settled, it revealed a long bloody cut on Tian Xiezi's cheek. His eyes were full of astonishment and fury. He had clearly blocked Yu Zifeng's attack, but some kind of invisible power had still continued straight toward his head. If he hadn't reacted fast enough, that attack might have killed him. Yu Zifeng's sword qi contained a power similar to a law, and it had almost taken his life. Despite reacting so quickly, he was still left with a deep cut on his face. It was possible to see bone through that wound. His blood poured out as he was unable to heal it. At this moment, Long Chen, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Wild, Tang Wan, and the others' attacks rained down on him. Yu Zifeng, Yi Zhiqiu, and Guoran prepared to unleash more attacks as well. Lightning flashed through the air, and spear images tore through the void. Long Chen's lightning disturbed the surrounding space, giving others chances to launch their own attacks. His lightning was capable of blocking Tian Xiezi's sight and divine sense, slowing down his reactions. Because of this, Meng Qi, Yu Zifeng, Yi Zhiqiu, and the others could unleash their long-distance attacks. Only Wild, Guoran, and Meng Qi's beast corpse could fight Tian Xiezi at close range. They managed to tie him down. As Tian Xiezi blocked their attacks from all directions, he sneered, "The mighty Long Chen is actually hiding amongst the crowd and launching sneak attacks? Ha! Who would have thought that you would fall to this point?" Even facing everyone, Tian Xiezi was able to remain undefeated. His manifestation was quivering, unleashing a faint bloody mist that slowly covered the entire battlefield. As the battle grew more intense, no one noticed this phenomenon. "Idiot, if my boss was in the same realm as you, my boss would beat you until you cried," sneered Guoran, even as he was blown back by an attack from Tian Xiezi. Inside his armor, Guoran coughed up a mouthful of blood. However, this was nothing to him, and he instantly recovered. In truth, he had coughed up far more blood during this battle, but the armor made it so that others didn't notice. They still thought that he was completely fine, making him seem stronger than he was. Although he was currently supported by the power of the Dragonblood warriors, it was mainly focused on his attacks. If he had to switch it to defense, it would cause a lag every time and weaken it, so Guoran was mostly using his armor to endure Tian Xiezi's attacks, while using the Dragonblood warriors' power for offense. If it wasn't because he had no other choice, he wouldn't be fighting at such close range. It was only because Wild on his own couldn't bear this burden that he was taking such a risk. Tian Xiezi is extremely powerful. A portion of our power is being erased by his samsara energy. Only Yu Zifeng and Yi Zhiqiu's attacks are able to pose a danger to his life. My bone beast's power is still too weak without its flesh. It cannot threaten Tian Xiezi's life. Cloud will give you a chance. Use your divine ability to restrain Tian Xiezi so Yu Zifeng and Yi Zhiqiu have a chance to attack. Meng Qi transmitted a strategy to everyone. She found that her own spiritual attacks were absorbed by Tian Xiezi's manifestation. The divine statue was absorbing her attacks, making her uneasy. She was worried that her attacks were becoming nourishment for the statue. Right now, the only ones capable of breaking through Tian Xiezi's samsara energy were Yu Zifeng and Yi Zhiqiu. However, most of his attention was locked onto them, preventing them from attacking effectively. Tian Xiezi took advantage of that, forcing the two of them to defend whenever he attacked, allowing him to gradually take control of the tempo of the battlefield. Tian Xiezi unleashed 3 consecutive attacks at Yu Zifeng, sweeping away the opposition. He finally arrived in front of him and raised his spear. However, a line of black light containing the aura of annihilation suddenly shot toward Tian Xiezi without any warning. Tian Xiezi hastily blocked, only to have his arm vanish. How regretful! Meng Qi and the others sighed. By working together, they had created the optimal chance for Cloud to attack, but Tian Xiezi was just too powerful. Despite this attack coming without any sound, he still managed to avoid a fatal injury. Courting death. Tian Xiezi furiously glared at Cloud. The surprises were coming one after the other. Wild, Meng Qi, Guoran, Yu Zifeng, Yi Zhiqiu, and the others had completely surpassed his expectations. He thought that he would be able to easily crush them, only to find that it had become a relatively even fight. Despite that, he still felt some satisfaction. Back then he had joined forces with Kun Pingzi and Di Feng to attack Long Chen, but now Long Chen was forced to attack him with others. He had started secretly recording this. Once he killed Long Chen, he would publicly release this recording. Originally, this recording was perfect, but now he had been repeatedly injured, ruining his splendor. His image of an unrivaled expert was being destroyed. Cloud's attack had been terrifying. If it had hit him in the head, his samsara power would have been powerless to do anything to it. He would have been killed. Tian Xiezi's arm grew back out. The only one capable of leaving lasting wounds on his body was Yu Zifeng. Even Cloud's divine ability was unable to do that. Hence, Tian Xiezi continued to attack Yu Zifeng as he was the most threatening one. As long as he killed him, this battle would be his to win. Sword Qi raged through the air. This was a battle of peak monsters. The martial heaven continent's disciples could only stare. Let alone them, even experts like Yi Lingshan, Song Mingyuan, and Li Qi were unable to join this battle. Numbers alone were insufficient to handle an expert like Tian Xiezi. More numbers would only weaken their overall power. With Cloud's attack failing, Tian Xiezi was now on guard, and there was no longer a chance for Cloud to attack. Cloud transformed into human form, wielding her original true feather. Chu Yao and Lu Rian controlled the battlefield with Long Chen's lightning. Things gradually fell into a stalemate. No one dared to be the slightest bit careless because that would cost someone's life. Having entered the 4th step of the Nether Passage realm, Tian Xiezi was incredibly powerful. Suddenly, Tian Xiezi let out a cry. He actually tossed his spear aside and clapped his hands together. The world shuddered as bloody light enveloped Meng Qi and the others. Corrupt King overlooks the 9 heavens prison. The statue within Tian Xiezi's manifestation suddenly came to life, forming its own hand seals. The manifestation swept over the world, creating a spherical domain around Long Chen and the others. This domain was a part of Tian Xiezi's manifestation. It was like they had been sucked inside of it. Everyone's expression changed. Guoran was the first to attempt charging out, but his attack didn't shake the sphere at all. Haha. Tian Xiezi laughed, standing atop the statue. Did you think that I only had this little bit of ability? You're naive. You have no idea just how terrifying a manifestation can be when its true name is called out. You are within my manifestation's domain. Here, I am God and none of you can compete with me. Wild, who either didn't believe him or didn't understand, attacked. His bone club smashed toward Tian Xiezi, but the statue moved, smashing a fist at Wild. As a result, Wild's incredibly tough bone club that had never been damaged in battle shattered. Wild. Everyone was startled, rushing over. Wild smashed into the wall of the domain and bounced off of it. When he picked himself up, his hands were covered in blood. Crack lines had appeared up to his shoulder. Foolish oaf, in this place, your brute power is far from enough. A fully awakened manifestation can unleash world energy through every bit of it. Your world energy can only be released through your body, but my world energy is fully unleashed throughout this entire domain. This domain is my world. Here, I can freely unleash the full power of my astral space, and it is no longer limited by my physical body. Can a person's power contend with the power of a world? Tian Xiezi swept his gaze across them. Their shocked appearances were extremely satisfactory to him. I bet you never imagined just how much power a manifestation could unleash. Although many of you are talented and have a chance of reaching this level, I won't be giving you that chance. Your lives will end here, said Tian Xiezi. Some faint rumbling rang out. It was possible to see Ye Lingshan, Gu Yang, Li Qi, Song Mingyuan, and the others attacking the barrier. However, their power was unable to break through. They were like grasshoppers jumping into a heavy door. I have just entered the samsara realm, but unless someone's power can transcend the laws of my manifestation, this barrier will not break. Everyone, it's about time for you to die. I still have more important things to do. Longchen, so sorry, I'm going to start with your friends. Tian Xiezi smiled at Longchen sinisterly. However, from start to end, Longchen remained expressionless. Lightning flickered around him, but that lightning was starting to lose its light under Tian Xiezi's suppression. It's Guoran, right? An ant like you isn't qualified to stand in front of me. I'll kill you first. You can consider it my favor to you. Tian Xiezi raised his hand, and a ray of golden light shot out. Dodge! Everyone wanted to stop it, but they were shocked to find that their heavenly Tao energy had been isolated from them. The golden light had reached Guoran. Guoran summoned the defenses of his armor, only to have the runes on his armor flicker. This armor was designed to work with his heavenly Tao energy. Without it, his armor's power dropped by over half. It's over! A sense of death swamped Guoran's heart. Boom! The golden light was shattered by a ray of sword light. Guoran tumbled back, his armor growing dim. Zifeng! Everyone was delighted to see Guoran alive. The one to save him was Yu Zifeng, but his expression was extremely heavy. The legends say that the sword Tao can stand outside the heavenly Taos on its own. It seems that the legends are true. Tian Xiezi looked at Yu Zifeng. Sword cultivators were the most difficult existences to judge in this world. The only one not suppressed by his domain was Yu Zifeng. Tian Xiezi then glanced toward the lightning-covered Longchen and shook his head. Who would have thought that the famous Longchen would be suppressed to such an extent, but you are still able to move. Well, I don't mind showing you how outmatched you are. Tian Xiezi formed new hand seals. After that, the statue released a wave of golden light that enveloped everyone. In that instant, Meng Qi and the others were shocked to find that they could no longer move. This is a different kind of heavenly Tao energy, or perhaps it should be called world energy. Within this domain, he is the ruler of the heavenly Taos. Our realms are suppressed, Meng Qi transmitted to everyone. On their way here, they had encountered experts in the samsara realm, and they had killed some of them. But they had never encountered someone with such power. This was a completely suppressive power that they couldn't contend against. Zifeng! Everyone suddenly let out a startled cry. At this moment, Tian Xiezi's spear pierced toward Yu Zifeng. Yu Zifeng's sword danced before him, blocking 7 of Tian Xiezi's attacks in a row. However, on the 8th time, his sword shattered. Fragments cut into Yu Zifeng's body. As he wasn't an Empyrean, he couldn't use heavenly Tao energy to heal. Adding on the weak bodies of sword cultivators, these wounds, insignificant to others, could be fatal for him. This was Tian Xiezi's domain, so Yu Zifeng couldn't even use his life energy to heal here. I really do admire you. You aren't an Empyrean, But by relying on yourself, you were able to reach this level. You might even give me a more threatening feeling than Long Chen. But now I can rest easy. A ray of light enveloped Yu Zifeng, making him unable to move either. Yu Zifeng was covered in blood. Watching as Tian Xiezi slowly approached him, he didn't show the slightest fear. He just looked at him calmly. Although I admire you, I still have no choice but to kill you. Tian Xiezi smiled faintly and pointed his spear at Yu Zifeng's head. He turned to look at Long Chen. Long Chen, I will now return my humiliation to you tenfold. Right in front of you, I will kill everyone by your side. At this moment, the lightning around Long Chen had weakened to the point that it was barely flickering. At some time, even his divine ring had faded. However, his expression was still calm. Have you heard of this saying? Idiots always talk a lot before death. Finally, Long Chen spoke for the first time since entering Tian Xiezi's domain. However, as soon as he spoke, Tian Xiezi's expression changed. Long Chen's voice was not his voice. It was a synthetic voice of rumbling thunder. Having a bad feeling, Tian Xiezi directly stabbed his spear toward Yu Zifeng's head. Too late. Long Chen suddenly laughed. Boom. Long Chen's body exploded, and a sinister black saber flew out of him. Evil Moon had actually blown Long Chen up and pierced straight toward Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi was shocked to find that Evil Moon was also able to ignore the laws of his domain. It contained such destructive power that he knew if he was struck, he would definitely die. With his domain unable to bind it, he had no choice but to give up on Yu Zifeng and swing his spear at Evil Moon. However, just as the two weapons were about to meet, Evil Moon vanished. His spear swept through empty air. A figure suddenly appeared in front of him, slapping him in the face. Long Chen. When Tian Xiezi stabilized himself in the distance, he saw Long Chen standing beside Yu Zifeng with Evil Moon in his hand. Moreover, as he sensed the life and death energy flowing within Long Chen's body in an endless cycle, he was dumbfounded. Are you surprised? Long Chen swung Evil Moon, causing the void to shatter. The power binding everyone was broken, so Meng Qi and the others regained their freedom. Wild staggered and almost fell. Tian Xiezi had given him some special attention, binding him with 3 times the power of the others. Someone else would have been directly pulverized. Wild was like Yu Zifeng in that he didn't need heavenly Tao energy, but his brute power was also suppressed within this domain. After his weapon was broken, he didn't know how to unleash his power. Boss, you succeeded? Asked Guoran delightedly. I finished 3 breaths time before, but I was finishing up some arrangements. Now, everything is under control. Long Chen turned toward Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi, we can settle all our grudges today. Bring out whatever power you have, or you won't get another chance in the future. Long Chen was standing within Tian Xiezi's domain, but the laws of this domain did not bind him. That was because he had also reached the 4th step of Nether Passage and controlled Samsara power. With a simple slash of Evil Moon, a tear appeared within the domain. Meng Qi and the others understood his intention and retreated from the domain. Yi Lingshan and the others also stopped their attacks, joining together with them. Meng Qi looked at her skeletal beast and shook her head. She had used up less than half of its energy, so she would be able to summon it one more time. After evacuating, everyone focused on the 2 figures within the domain. Long Chen lightly said, "Are you curious? When you saw me summon my lightning, that was no longer me but a lightning clone. That's why all my attacks were focused on long range. This clone didn't have the power to fight you in close range, and I didn't want you to sense anything. Did it feel good to be fighting against so many powerful people at one time? Did it feel so good that you didn't want it to end quickly? Did you want to enjoy that feeling of being unrivaled?" Long Chen knew that Tian Xiezi was bewildered. His head had been muddled by his own power. Under the attacks of Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Yu Zifeng, Wild, and the others, he had neglected to think about Long Chen. As everyone else had been attacking, Long Chen had entered the life and death spring to absorb its energy. Other people would need to first enter a perfect meditative state, but Long Chen had no need to do so. This spring was a natural location where life and death energy flowed with the essence of samsara. By absorbing it, Long Chen quickly came to be able to control samsara power. Other people would need several days to comprehend how to use samsara power even in the best of times, but Long Chen's mental realm had far surpassed his cultivation base, which always lagged behind. With this spring as a model that showed how samsara power was circulated, he gained control over it in just a short time. Although he had just set foot in this realm and had yet to fully comprehend it, it was enough. As for his lightning clone, he had intentionally left it within the domain so that he could find the node of the domain. Without knowing where that spot was, entering from the outside was very difficult. After finding it though, entering and exiting became much easier. Tian Xiezi's gaze was frightening now. The feeling of unease had grown so intense that it could be considered as a kind of fear now. He didn't know if this fear was a shadow left behind by his previous defeats to Long Chen or whether it came from his sense of danger. It seems that you're very confident. But that confidence stems from foolishness. You've just set foot into the samsara realm and don't even know how to call out the true name of your manifestation. Oh wait, you aren't even an Empyrean. If you had left with everyone else and joined forces to attack me, perhaps you would have had some chance to win. But you are too foolish. Staying within my manifestation's domain signifies that you have died due to your overconfidence. Tian Xiezi looked at Long Chen, his spear once more appearing in his hand. Do you know how most of my powerful opponents died? I'll tell you. They died from talking too much. If you weren't so conceited, if you didn't put on a display of overwhelming multiple opponents, if you simply weren't talking so much and instead went all out killing me from the start, perhaps you wouldn't be dying today. You are so conceited that it's laughable. I'll tell you this, even if I hadn't entered the fourth step, you would still face a miserable defeat today. However, even if I could defeat you, I wouldn't have been able to keep you here once you tried to run. Then you would have lived longer. Remember, you died to your talkative mouth, said Long Chen. Bullshit. Tian Xiezi's manifestation shuddered. Divine light filled the entire domain, and pressure crashed down on Long Chen from every direction. That power was many times greater than what had been used to bind Meng Qi and the others. In the face of that pressure, Long Chen calmly walked forward, seemingly unaffected. His divine ring appeared behind him. However, this time, Long Chen's divine ring was different from before. A starry sky had appeared within it. It was like staring into a vast cosmos. It was mysterious and beautiful. If you looked closely, you would find that there were a total of 108,000 stars shining within the divine ring. Those were the astral spaces within Long Chen's body. They were now reflected within his divine ring. 5-colored light radiated from the divine ring, dyeing the domain in its color. Your anger comes from your fear. Your shouting is to give yourself courage. Your viciousness conceals the fear of death in your heart. What nonsense is that crap about death being a return to the corrupt God's embrace? Not even you, the divine Son, believes that crap. So you are afraid of dying. Your corrupt path is simply a group of idiots lying to themselves. All your fearsomeness is to hide your own fear. Long Chen's divine ring continued to radiate light. The immense pressure crashing down on him slowly faded away. Samsara power flowed within his meridians. He knew that he was now in control of an unimaginable power. However, he himself wasn't fully clear on what this power was. When he summoned his divine ring, his astral spaces seemed to come to life, automatically linking their power to form this mysterious starry sky. Their power was being fully unleashed. In his current state, he was finally able to fully control the power of his 108,000 astral spaces. Although he didn't have a manifestation, as the power of his astral spaces entered his body, he felt filled with power. He didn't even dare to unleash that full power at once. He unleashed it bit by bit, afraid that his own body wouldn't be able to handle it. It was no wonder Tian Xiezi dared to come here alone. This was the great divide separating the third and fourth steps of Nether Passage. Nonsense! Tian Xiezi roared furiously. Long Chen's words had touched upon the deepest part of his heart. He was truly afraid, and that fear was only continuing to grow. He had an urge to turn and flee right now. However, he was unwilling to flee just like this. Long Chen had just set foot into the fourth step and hadn't gotten used to his samsara power. This was perhaps his final chance to kill him. Now, he regretted not immediately killing Long Chen. Perhaps then Long Chen would be dead. Even with everyone protecting Long Chen, they wouldn't have been able to stop him. Regretfully, there were not so many ifs in this world, nor was there a medicine for regret. Every single one of Long Chen's words was like a poison arrow shooting into the weakest part of his heart, trampling over his dignity and humiliating his faith. With a furious roar, his world energy erupted. Space shuddered as cracks appeared in the air around Long Chen's divine ring. However, even as Tian Xiezi attempted to use his domain to crush him, the divine ring was unaffected. "Do you need some paper? It looks like you're having trouble shitting yourself." Long Chen looked at Tian Xiezi's constipated expression sympathetically. Tian Xiezi suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. His aura flew into chaos, and all the power that he had been concentrating dissipated. Boss really is boss. He can defeat enemies with just his mouth. Which other hero of this world can do that? Guoran clenched his fists, looking at Long Chen worshipfully. Those words definitely contained killing power. Meng Qi and the others exchanged a glance, shaking their heads. Even now, Long Chen didn't care about his own status or keeping up the air of an expert. "Long Chen, I'll go all out against you." Even as Tian Xiezi hacked up blood, he could still roar crazily. The statue behind him suddenly exploded, transforming into blood-colored runes that covered him. It was like he was encased in blood armor. Divine energy raged through the air, and the aura of a god came from Tian Xiezi. Some of the weaker disciples had an urge to kneel. He's igniting the part of him that makes him a divine son. Is he trying to die together with senior apprentice brother Long Chen? A startled cry rang out as someone recognized what Tian Xiezi was doing. The divine energy raging around Tian Xiezi took the form of blazing divine flames. He truly appeared to be a god at this moment. Corrupt King Hell Spear. Tian Xiezi's manifestation twisted around his spear. The full power of his manifestation was sucked into his spear. "Everyone, hide within the spring," shouted Meng Qi suddenly. Everyone dove beneath the spring water. "Die!" Tian Xiezi furiously unleashed his spear. This attack caused the world to shake. Long Chen casually lifted Evil Moon off of his shoulder with a faint smile. "This grand aspiration of yours will probably never come to pass." Facing Tian Xiezi's attack, Long Chen raised Evil Moon in front of him and calmly waited for it to land. Endless power was circulating within his body, and it came from his 108,000 astral spaces. Upon stepping into the samsara realm, Long Chen finally understood the essence of the Nether Passage realm. Before this, his astral spaces were like individual blocks contributing a portion of their power to him. But with his new life and death energy, it was like they had been unsealed. Their power united, circulating according to a specific rhythm. It was like they had formed into a formation, giving him incalculable power. At this moment, rather than fear, Long Chen felt a thirst for a powerful opponent to test just how strong his new power was. Boom! Tian Xiezi's spear smashed into Evil Moon, unleashing an explosion of divine light that destroyed the surroundings. Only the life and death spring seemed protected by some kind of law. The rest of the surrounding space had been wrecked. An aura of destruction continued to hang in the air. Meng Qi and the others were still beneath the spring, not daring to come out. They were truly shocked at Tian Xiezi's power. But when the twisting space stabilized, they saw Long Chen standing in his original location. He hadn't budged an inch. Heavens, he blocked it? Some disciples snuck their heads out and had to confirm that they weren't just seeing things. Others followed, but they remained ready to dive back at the slightest notice. This spring had become their protective talisman. Ah, boss really is boss. Tian Xiezi's attack can't even rattle him. Guoran laughed so arrogantly as if he had been the one to block Tian Xiezi's powerful attack. "This is impossible." Tian Xiezi roared. He hadn't held back in the slightest just now, but Long Chen had easily received it. He refused to believe this. The stars within Long Chen's divine ring were like a vast universe. Tian Xiezi felt as if his attack had been launched into that universe and dissipated without causing a ripple. There was definitely something wrong. Why don't you try again? Long Chen nodded along with Tian Xiezi's judgment. Tian Xiezi furiously attacked once more, causing startled cries to ring out from below. Guoran and the others dived back down. Tian Xiezi wasn't even accumulating power before unleashing his attack. However, they were startled to find that there was no earth-shaking explosion this time, nor was there furious divine light. There was only a muffled bang before things fell silent. Guoran and the others cautiously looked through the water, not daring to stick their heads up again. Tian Xiezi stared in shock. His hand trembled. Now this shows that there wasn't a problem. I understand how to use samsara power to dissipate an opponent's attack now. Long Chen smiled. In the first attack, he had used his life and death energy to block it. At that moment, he had sensed that while a portion was blocked, resulting in a huge explosion, another portion was absorbed by his samsara power. In the second attack, he chose not to block it, instead circulating his samsara power to easily dissipate the attack without the slightest harm. This allowed him to experience the immense difference between the third and fourth steps. Originally, his 108,000 astral spaces hadn't given him the immense advantage he had expected within the life star realm. With others only having one astral space, no matter how big they were, they couldn't be bigger than his astral spaces combined. His astral spaces had to be at least 10 times greater than other people's. However, he had never felt himself to have such a huge advantage in that regard. It was only now that he felt like he might weep from emotion. The advantage of his 108,000 astral spaces was materializing now. Tian Xiezi's full power attack was easily absorbed by his astral spaces without causing a ripple. He wasn't even qualified to injure him. Prepare yourself. It should be my turn now. Long Chen suddenly turned hostile. The stars within his divine ring blazed with light, and a majestic energy soared within Evil Moon. Tian Xiezi was sent flying simply by the soaring power. Without even raising a hand, just Long Chen's rising power was enough to blow him back. Tian Xiezi was horrified. His power was still locked onto Long Chen. He hadn't loosened his lock in the slightest, but Long Chen had easily knocked him back. Have a taste of my saber. Long Chen slashed Evil Moon without any technique. It was a simple slash. However, the world fell silent. Time faded away. As everything else was frozen, only Long Chen's black blade slowly moved through the air. Time? Speed? They were all meaningless. Tian Xiezi sensed just how profoundly terrifying this attack was. This attack filled heaven and earth, so there was nowhere to run. The only thing he could do was receive it head-on. With a howl, blood-colored runes ignited around his body once more. He raised his spear. Boom. Evil Moon slashed down, seemingly both incredibly slow and fast. There was no mighty hurricane following it, but when it struck Tian Xiezi's spear, Evil Moon's power instantly erupted. Tian Xiezi's spear exploded and fragmented runes flew out. Those runes were wailing. They were the countless resentful spirits sealed within the spear. Upon obtaining their freedom, they should have been grateful to Long Chen. However, they had been sealed so long that they had lost any rationality. They charged at Long Chen, howling for his life. A dragon's roar rang out, and Lei Long devoured those resentful spirits in an instant. With that, the world returned to calm, revealing Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi's arms were gone, and his entire body looked like fractured porcelain. He was covered in deep cracks. It seemed that he was on the verge of death. Even while igniting the divine energy of a divine sun, Tian Xiezi was unable to block a single blow from Long Chen, who was in control of samsara power. Long Chen quickly followed up with another slash of his saber. It was a casual blow once more. Corrupt King Shield. Tian Xiezi summoned a giant blood-colored shield, only for it to be instantly shattered. Not even divine energy could stop Long Chen. Despite blocking the attack, the shockwave resulted in Tian Xiezi's fractured body exploding. Through the blood, a translucent figure appeared. Long Chen, just wait. With his physical body destroyed, Tian Xiezi couldn't fight any longer. A mark appeared on his forehead, and he began to fade away. You're overthinking it. If it wasn't to kill you, do you think I'd take the risk of breaking through? Raging flame prison. Long Chen sneered. With no need to form hand seals, flame chains appeared in the air and bound the surrounding space. In that instant, the rest of the world was cut off. This flame prison was not just physical, and Tian Xiezi's fading figure returned. Tian Xiezi spread his arms, summoning a runic spear. He struck the cage repeatedly but was unable to break through it. I won't make the same mistake twice. That six-horned sea serpent got away last time, but I can make up for it now. This flame prison is now my strongest restraining technique. It will make sure my opponents can't run after being defeated. I was originally planning on using it after injuring you together with my brothers, but I didn't expect that you would be so cooperative as to not even see through my lightning clone. If you had, you would have had a 50% chance of using your divine energy to get away. But now, your physical body is destroyed, and your divine energy is exhausted. You have no chance to run, said Long Chen. Huolinger was Long Chen's strongest support now. She was the best option for preventing Tian Xiezi from getting away. He had known from the start that Tian Xiezi had to have many life-protecting talismans. Beating him was easy, but killing him was hard. Tian Xiezi's expression was sinister. Blood runes appeared in his hand, and he began to chant a sutra. The blood runes quickly covered his whole body. Long Chen was started and quickly made the flame prison shrink down. Too late. Tian Xiezi sneered. When his body was fully covered in blood runes, he flew into the flame chains, his body seeming to melt and pass through. Long Chen, you cost me all the faith energy I was blessed with. Just wait, I swear I will have my vengeance. Just as Tian Xiezi was saying some final fateful words, a translucent dagger stabbed through his back and out his chest. The blood runes covering his body rapidly faded. A small cloaked figure had appeared in midair like a spirit of the night. Dong Mingyu raised her head, revealing her faint smile. In this state of divine protection, others can't kill you, but I can. Tian Xiezi stared at the dagger piercing through his chest resentfully. He had actually forgotten about Dong Mingyu, a divine daughter. He had sacrificed all his divine energy for this temporary state that allowed him to escape the flame prison, only to land in Dong Mingyu's embrace. Although Dong Mingyu had betrayed the Blood Kill Hall, she possessed the power of the killing god, so she was still considered a divine daughter. Of everyone here, she was the only one capable of killing him in this state. Long Chen had a complicated expression as he looked at the motionless Tian Xiezi. Now do you understand? Even if I hadn't broken through to the fourth step, we could have still defeated you. When you were exhausted and my flame prison forced out your remaining power, you would have used this technique to flee. You wouldn't be able to escape Mingyu's killing blow, but perhaps you would have managed to turn it into an injury instead of death. Now though, you have no chance. Divine energy flowed out of Dong Mingyu's dagger, fully erasing Tian Xiezi's divine energy. His Yuan spirit was now completely out of energy. His world energy had been exhausted, his divine energy had been incinerated, and he no longer possessed the slightest bit of energy to resist. I didn't expect that I would be defeated here. But this time I am convinced by my defeat. In the same realm, I am not worth anything in front of you. Perhaps this is fate. Even as a divine son, I'm just a supporting character to set off someone else's brilliance. Tian Xiezi's rage faded away, and he became calm. A cluster of flames appeared on his forehead, indicating that his Yuan spirit had been ignited. Knowing that he was definitely dead, he chose to incinerate his own Yuan spirit to preserve the slightest bit of dignity for himself. Tell me where you were all going and I will permit you to have a fitting death, said Long Chen. Originally, Long Chen could have done a soul arch. With Meng Qi present, they might be able to gain quite a bit of valuable information. But he chose not to do this. At this moment, Long Chen didn't feel an overwhelming hatred for Tian Xiezi. Their enmity was the result of being on opposing sides. They were natural enemies, and there was no right or wrong. This was simply fate. Haha. Tian Xiezi suddenly laughed. Don't force me to do it. Xiachen's formation is already set up, and Meng Qi is prepared, said Long Chen coldly. As he said, Xiachen had 2 formation discs in his hand, and Meng Qi had her manifestation out, ready to use her spiritual arts at any moment. Tian Xiezi shook his head. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at myself. I cannot compare to you in talent, intelligence, and now I'm even inferior in terms of character. Fine, if there is a next life, I hope I won't be your enemy. Perhaps I can even be like your dragon blood warriors and follow by your side. Maybe I won't be confused in the next life. Tian Xiezi raised his hand, and a spiritual arrow shot at Long Chen. Long Chen caught it, and it exploded. A torrent of information entered Long Chen's mind. Tian Xiezi's body suddenly shuddered. He began to dissipate like sand blowing in the wind. He merged into heaven and earth, vanishing. A generation's genius, someone who had dominated their era, someone who had been sealed for tens of thousands of years before being awoken, had died. Even the righteous path's disciples couldn't help sighing. His final words were especially moving. Tian Xiezi actually had questions about his belief. He was not completely loyal to the corrupt god, or he wouldn't have said such a thing. Everyone had different experiences. Perhaps Tian Xiezi had also gone through things that none of them knew of. However, everyone's experiences were personal to themselves. In the cultivation world, it was unknown just how many people were forced into paths that they didn't choose for themselves. Some choices were made because they had no other options. Even the divine son of the corrupt path was unable to be free, so what of others? Heaven and earth were like a chessboard, while cultivators were nothing more than game pieces. They didn't have a choice about whether they were black pieces or white pieces. He didn't have to die. As long as he swore to remain loyal to the righteous path, we could have accepted him, said Tang Wana regretfully. Others also felt a bit of regret. If Tian Xiezi had joined their side, even if he was only a Yuan spirit, he would have been a terrifying force. That would also be a serious blow to the corrupt path's morale. Long Chen shook his head. He had his own pride. Even if he wasn't controlled by a divine seed, he wouldn't submit like that. Furthermore, would you really accept someone with so much blood of the righteous path on his hands? What about other sects? Would Tian Xiezi wish to live a life cursed by others? Impossible. So death was his best ending. Everyone nodded. That truly was the case. The enmity between the righteous and corrupt paths was not something that could be erased. Long Chen, did Tian Xiezi give you any useful information? Asked Meng Qi. Yes. He told me everything he knew, said Long Chen. He was won over by your character. You let him die an expert's death instead of doing a direct soul search, said Chu Yao. That was truly a bit surprising. The reason Long Chen wanted to kill Tian Xiezi so badly was to learn his secrets. But even then, he wasn't fully confident in being able to grasp his soul fragments. Perhaps Tian Xiezi had even possessed a way to erase his memories. Based on Tian Xiezi's memories, the one behind the scenes of everything was the Yi family. They had proposed hunting down the Martial Heaven Alliance and the Xian Beast's disciples, with the goal not to kill them, but to slow them down. However, the Yi family was crafty, and while the disciples of the continent fought amongst themselves, it allowed the disciples of the divine families to progress faster. They smoothly progressed to areas with greater chances of obtaining treasures. Tian Xiezi and Di Feng were not fools. They had left markers on the experts of the divine families, allowing them to realize that they were all gathering at the spring. With the goal of the divine families exposed to them, they made a new plan, leaving behind a portion of their forces to disturb the Dragonblood Legion so that they could also go search for treasures without their interference. At that time, Tian Xiezi had proposed taking on the role of disturbing them. Ye Ming had warned him not to fight Long Chen directly and only disturb his advancement before leaving. Tian Xiezi had agreed but hadn't acted according to his instructions. Have Zi Yan, Lady Nangong, and Lady Beiting already advanced? Asked Meng Qi. Long Chen nodded. They were all smart. Most likely, they had a way to track the divine family's experts, so their groups didn't need to waste time gathering before advancing to this location. Other than those fools from the Sea Demon race, the others have all reached this place before us. Even that fellow Mo Nian managed to muddle his way in here. When he mentioned Mo Nian, Long Chen couldn't help finding it a bit funny. According to Tian Xiezi's memories, Mo Nian had been targeted by the corrupt path and the ancient family alliance upon arriving here. At that time, he had stated that if anyone dared to interfere with the advancements of the Mo family's disciples, no one else would be allowed to advance either. Ye Ming had even fought with him, and in their probing exchange, Ye Ming had been at a disadvantage. The huge amount of divine energy within Mo Nian's body had shocked everyone. They thought that he had gained some god's inheritance and become a divine son. That show of power resulted in no one daring to antagonize him further. Although he wouldn't be able to kill them all, if he caused a ruckus, none of them would be able to peacefully cultivate. As a result, they had all advanced and moved on. The only thing that made Long Chen feel slightly uneasy was that Feng Fei, the Pill Fairy, and even Dongfang Yang were not present amongst them. "Boss, do you know where they went?" asked Guoran. "I know the general direction and location." Ye Ming told those to Tian Xiezi. "Now that he's dead, Ye Ming has definitely been alerted. I have to go over there quickly." Long Chen turned to everyone. "Finish cultivating here. After advancing, the Dragon Blood warriors should not split up." The Martial Heaven Alliance and the Xian Beast disciples should form new groups and go explore the northwest region. That is unknown territory with more treasures that others haven't found yet. As for myself, you don't need to be in a rush to join with me. Go in search of your own opportunities. Only Captain-class experts within the Dragon Blood Legion are permitted to go out alone. Everyone else should remain together. Yes. The Dragon Blood warriors assented. They knew that in those dangerous areas, only the captains could protect themselves. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, should some of us stay behind to stop the sea demons? Asked one of the Martial Heaven Alliance's disciples. They could do the same thing that the corrupt path and the ancient family alliance had done to them. This spring possessed a heaven-defying power. It could slow down the sea demon race from using its power. No need. If we leave too few people, it would be dangerous. Too many and it wouldn't be worth it. The sea demon race has too many people, so we can't exhaust ourselves against them. If you have that time, you should go search for your own opportunities instead. Those fools of the sea demon race aren't worth wasting the time, said Long Chen. Everyone, take care of yourselves. Long Chen nodded toward Meng Qi and the others before a pair of lightning wings appeared on his back and he vanished. He had just left the region of the spring when he sensed something. He slowly flew toward a distant stone. It was a very ordinary stone. However, it appeared a bit conspicuous within this forest. When Long Chen picked it up, he found a black rock beneath it, and there were a few more pebbles around the black rock, forming an arrow. Long Chen picked up the black rock. This rock came from the Netherworld. It possessed the specific aura of the Netherworld. This was something that Mo Nian had brought back from the Netherworld. At that time, Long Chen had even laughed at him, saying that it was just an ordinary rock with no use. However, now it was used for an exceptional purpose. Other people's memories of the Netherworld were erased after returning, but due to his relationship with a Nether god, he was very sensitive to this aura. As for Mo Nian, he had stolen Hong Yaoyang's mortal husk. His memories of the Netherworld would never fade. No one else would notice this rock's aura, but Long Chen instantly noticed it. Mo Nian had even encased it in samsara power to cover up its aura. That way, only once Long Chen reached the samsara realm would he be able to sense the aura of the Netherworld from the rock. It seemed Mo Nian didn't wish for Long Chen to chase after him if he hadn't broken through yet. That fellow's pretty smart. He definitely noticed Ye Ming's plot and snuck after them. Long Chen saw that the direction the arrow was pointing in was in the same general direction as where Tian Xiezi's memories were telling him to go. Mo Nian definitely wouldn't have anticipated that Long Chen would know about it from Tian Xiezi's memories. After looking around, Long Chen shot off, seeing quite a few signs of battles. It was unknown who had been fighting. After a day and night of flying, Long Chen saw a group of a few thousand searching for something. That group instantly felt despair, as they belonged to the ancient family alliance. Long Chen glanced at them and then continued flying. Those disciples who had assumed that their deaths were set in stone stared in shock. "Perhaps he disdains killing people like us," said one of them bitterly. Despite having escaped death, that feeling of disdain was not a good one. "You're wrong. We didn't attack him, so he didn't kill us. He wouldn't take out his anger on us. He doesn't actually see us as enemies, only Feng. The ancient family alliance was once allied with the martial heaven alliance. If that was still the case, he would be a heavenly genius on our side. It's a pity. To tell the truth, I'm ashamed of the ancient family alliance for targeting him so often. Even if he killed me right now, I wouldn't feel hatred considering what the ancient family alliance did to him," said one person. That person made everyone fall into silent thought for a moment. They should have been on the same side, but things had ended up like this. "Senior apprentice brother Long Chen didn't kill us, so I won't attack him in this lifetime. I think it would be best if we didn't rush toward the gathering place so we don't have to fight with our old allies," proposed one person. "Good idea. I'm not going either. Let's treat it as if we are already dead." In an instant, everyone agreed to this suggestion. Once they reached the gathering place with Feng, they would have no choice but to fight Long Chen. What could they do then? Long Chen hadn't killed them now, but they would have to fight the people on Long Chen's side? "Let's go that way." Boom. Suddenly, an explosion of flames made everyone look in the distance. That's where senior apprentice brother Long Chen went. "Let's take a look." They cautiously traveled for an hour before reaching a barren land that had been charred black. Despite the battle being over, flame energy had turned this place into a domain whose remnant power was so frightening that they didn't dare to get close. It was the corrupt path. One person pointed toward a broken halberd in the ground. It had practically melted, but due to it being on the fringe of the battlefield, it was still possible to sense that it was a corrupt weapon. "It's the weapon of the corrupt path's expert, Sha Ling Xiao," exclaimed someone suddenly. "The blood halberd's soul reaper, that Sha Ling Xiao? Isn't he one of the 4 generals beneath Tian Xiezi who was sealed together with him?" "Yes, I once saw him fight. This halberd's aura is definitely his," said that person. Everyone was shocked. Someone who had reached the 4th step and was one of Tian Xiezi's 4 generals had been slain with a wave of Long Chen's hand. They also saw quite a few fragmented weapons throughout the battlefield. Based on what they had seen, the corrupt path was traveling in groups of 10,000 people. In other words, Long Chen's attack had wiped out a squad of 10,000 corrupt experts, with even their leader being powerless to block him. For a moment, these people could only stand there in shock. They had thought that Long Chen hadn't killed them because he disdained doing so and didn't want to waste the time. But upon seeing this, it would be no exaggeration to say that he could have killed them as easily as turning a hand. "Let's go. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen gave us a way to live. If we continue to fight him, it would truly be courting death." One of the leaders of this squad shook his head and brought his group away. They had given up any thought of being enemies with Long Chen. Their determination was such that even if they had to leave the ancient family alliance to avoid being enemies with Long Chen, they would do so. If they still didn't recognize this favor, they wouldn't be human. Long Chen had encountered 2 squads of the corrupt path as he traveled, and he had wiped them out with a single blow each time. Hua Linger's current power was so great that his enemies couldn't even react. She had gradually started to gain control over her own power, and her killing power even frightened Long Chen. The heavenly flame orb had not just increased her intelligence, but it also gave her a trace of power that should not exist in this world. Long Chen suspected that it was a trace of a heavenly flame's power. Heavenly flames existed above the earth flames. They were also called divine flames and immortal flames, things that should not exist in this world. It could be said that the heavenly flame orb had been a priceless treasure. A large pill appeared in Long Chen's hand. It still had flickering lightning over it, but he tossed it into his mouth. It was a recently refined top-grade Nethergate pill and also a giant tribulation pill. As a result, the Nethergate star above his Dantian shuddered. The giant pill's energy seemed to have woken it from slumber. Power poured into it, with the other 5 stars also lighting up. Long Chen knew that the other 5 stars were also fighting over the energy. From the moment that he had condensed the Divine Gate Star, he had noticed this phenomenon. The strengthening of the Nethergate Star required the other 5 stars to be uplifted as well. This kind of cultivation method was strange, but it seemed that this was the only way to balance the power of the stars. The Fengfu star was the first star he had condensed and also the weakest, but its current power was identical to the other stars. They had always maintained a subtle connection. Great. As long as I have an unending supply of giant pills, the Nethergate star will be fully condensed sooner or later. When the 9 star transformations are complete, I'll be unrivaled. Long Chen clenched his fists excitedly. Unfortunately, refining giant pills was not so simple. Only one could be refined at a time. Even with Huolinger and the moon and star refining furnace working together, it took an incense stick's worth of time to refine a single one. However, a single giant pill's energy was greater than 100 ordinary pills, so it was naturally more efficient. I'll be relying on the 6-star battle armor. Without it, I'll definitely be killed by the sovereign. Long Chen prayed inside for the 6-star battle armor. Without it, he would definitely die in his next tribulation. Long Chen. Just as Long Chen was pondering over the Nethergate star, a shout drew him out of his stupor. At some point, he had arrived at a desert, and there was a group of people attacking a giant black scorpion. Its aura showed that it was a 13th rank beast. Xin Chengfeng. Long Chen hadn't expected to encounter the 8th Legion here. Long Chen, why are you here? Why haven't you entered the deeper regions? Don't tell me you just came from the life-death spirit spring? Xin Chengfeng looked at Long Chen in confusion. That confused expression made Long Chen realize that Xin Chengfeng didn't know about the scheme. Most likely, it was a secret of the divine families that they weren't qualified to know. Either that, or the schemers were worried that Xin Chengfeng would alert Long Chen, so they had hidden it from him. Yes. I was waiting for everyone to gather, so it took some time. Hee, it seems that your gains aren't bad. Long Chen pointed to the scorpion. You're still in the mood to laugh? You have to hurry on ahead. Another day's travel and you should arrive at the 10,000 dragon nest. Hurry up, that's where the Real treasure lies. Shouted Xin Chengfeng, flustered and exasperated. The 10,000 dragon nest. It wasn't just Long Chen who was surprised to hear about the 10,000 dragon nest. The other heavenly dragon warriors were also startled. They had never heard of it. However, just the name was enough to inspire reverence. Everyone looked at Xin Chengfeng. I only heard this name accidentally from one of Senior Feng Fei's attendants. They told us the direction they were going, and there's a mark on the map with the character for 10,000. I didn't know what it was at first, but when they mentioned the 10,000 dragon nest, I knew that's what it was. However, Senior Feng Fei told us to scatter and look for our own opportunities here. I suspect that the 10,000 dragon nest is too dangerous for us, but I also saw that mysterious fellow from the corrupt path, Di Feng, Dongfang Yang, and a few others rushing over in that direction. You shouldn't waste any time and hurry over, or all the good things will be taken away by them, said Xin Chengfeng. Long Chen felt a bit of warmth in his heart. The 8th Legion belonged to the divine families but still had some brotherhood with him. Long Chen didn't believe that Xin Chengfeng hadn't heard any news about the scheme at all. He also saw a few complicated expressions amongst the heavenly dragon warriors. He knew that they had definitely received certain orders. Despite the orders, Xin Chengfeng still exposed such a secret to him. He definitely viewed Long Chen as a brother. Long Chen patted Xin Chengfeng's shoulder and nodded toward everyone. Brothers, I'll remember this favor. Long Chen's lightning wings flapped, and he sped off. He encountered several waves of the Martial Heaven Continent's experts, with one being from the corrupt path that he conveniently wiped out. As he was traveling, he saw 2 groups facing each other. When he saw that one of them belonged to the Ancient Family Alliance and the other was from the Mo family, he chose to hide himself in the void. He didn't see Mo Nian, but he did see Lu Zhongying. Both sides had weapons drawn. The atmosphere was extremely tense. You can go. The leader of that group of the Ancient Family Alliance was a white-robed man with a sword on his back. His expression was complicated as he looked at Lu Zhongying. Senior apprentice brother Jean Lin. The people beside the white-robed man stared at him in astonishment. The Mo family were the traitors of the ancient family alliance. Their side had more people, so they would definitely be at an advantage if they fought. The white-robed man shook his head. The grievance back then was so long ago that no one can say who was right and who was wrong. The truth has been erased within the river of time. With the martial heaven continent on the verge of destruction, this kind of fight is meaningless. If young Master Di Feng asks, I will take full responsibility. Lu Zongying smiled. The quicksword Jean Lin stands up to his reputation of a heavenly genius sealed during ancient times. This sharp vision is admirable. The truth from back then truly isn't important. What's important is how many people still care about that truth. Lu Zongying turned to the other experts wanting to fight. Don't feel indignant over missing such a great opportunity. I'll tell you frankly that the Mo family's power is not something that you can imagine. If you did choose to fight, you would be the ones to suffer. Bullshit. You traitors, you dare to be so arrogant? The Great Blood Emperor saw through your arrogance back then, which was why your Mo family was attacked. You shouldn't even exist in this world. The speaker didn't even get a chance to finish speaking. Lu Zongying raised a hand, and a hole appeared in that person's head. Lu Zongying's movements hadn't appeared too fast, but they had been so smooth and graceful that it was wonderful to see. That fellow Mo Nian actually managed to transmit his divine energy to her. Is he not afraid of harming her? Long Chen was the only one who saw it clearly. He saw that the reason she had managed to so easily kill that person was because her attack had contained divine energy. That person's corpse slowly collapsed to the ground. Killing intent rose from the other disciples of the ancient family alliance. Battle was imminent. In the face of their killing intent, Lu Zongying snorted, the Mo family's rise can no longer be stopped. The Mo family is going to take back its dignity. Senior apprentice brother Jean Lin, thank you for your kindness, but the Mo family will not accept anyone's pity. Even after that bloodshed, even through the years of fleeing, did we ever lower our heads? Mo Nian might not be present, but I, Lu Zongying. If you want to kill the Mo family's disciples, come try it. Lu Zongying's forceful appearance possessed even greater charisma than Mo Nian's mischievous laughing style. Her fearless determination was similar to Chu Jianying. Long Chen nodded. Lu Zongying was truly a heroine who would not accept other people's pity, nor would she allow the Mo family's disciples to leave in front of people's disdainful looks. That was an insult to the Mo family. Jean Lin had good intentions, but he had said one thing wrong. That was to say that he was allowing the Mo family's disciples to leave. That implied that they were the weaker ones. Lu Zongying thanked him for his good intentions, but she would not accept them. Jean Lin's expression changed. He felt as if he didn't have a way out. His hand reached back, but in the end he didn't unsheath the sword on his back. He shook his head and walked away, taking the blame, not wanting to take on the infamy of bullying a woman. He was a sword cultivator with a sword cultivator's pride. The other disciples of the ancient family alliance clenched their teeth but left with him. Jean Lin's position in the ancient family alliance was very high. Clapping rang out and everyone looked over. Lu Zongying was delighted, but the ancient family alliance's disciples' expressions all changed. Long Chen was clapping. A sword cultivator is truly a sword cultivator. This pride is worthy of praise. It is this pride that saved all your lives. If you had attacked, your names would only exist within the continent's history. The ancient family alliance's disciples' hearts clenched. They were pale with fear. Considering the point that the ancient family alliance and the martial heaven alliance had reached, Long Chen had more than enough reason to kill them right here if he wanted to. They had joined forces with the corrupt path to ambush the martial heaven alliance, even leaving people behind to disturb them. These people all knew of it. A cultivator must cultivate the heart. To cultivate the heart requires cultivating the mind first. A cultivator without a brain will sooner or later die to someone else's scheme no matter how strong they are. You're all very lucky to have a sword cultivator who protected your lives, but luck won't look after you forever. Go, and hopefully the next time I see you, you won't have given me a reason to kill you. said Long Chen. Jin Lin cupped his fists toward Long Chen, leading the ancient family alliance's disciples away. When they could no longer see Long Chen, those disciples finally realized that their backs were already covered in icy sweat. Congratulations to Mrs. Mo for your divine power. Long Chen turned to Lu Zongying and greeted her with a laugh. Congratulations, my ass. That Mo Nian has been corrupted by your bad example. Mo Nian was originally very obedient, but he started growing more and more wanton after encountering you. Lu Zongying's smile vanished and was replaced with a glare. Long Chen stared at her. Did her conscience not twinge when she called Mo Nian obedient? Mo Nian had always been the way he was. You should hurry and join Mo Nian. Be careful. Mo Nian said that the divine families didn't just send Feng Fei. There's another one whose power is not inferior to Feng Fei. The divine families are acting mysteriously. They definitely have their own goal, warned Lu Zongying. The divine families actually have another such expert? Long Chen was startled. Lu Zongying said Mo Nian was following Di Feng's tracks. Due to digging up the Di family's ancestral tomb, he has a special method to track him. Mo Nian wanted to kill him alone, but Di Feng was rushing on his own, while Mo Nian had to look after us, slowing him down. When we caught up to them, Tian, Xiezi, Di Feng, and the others had entered the life and death spirit spring. But they weren't the first batch to reach there. Another group had already left. Using one of his new divine abilities, Mo Nian saw someone enter with Feng Fei. In any case, the divine families have been very secretive over this star-field divine world, so Mo Nian left a marker for you to chase after him. With his cultivation base, I wouldn't be too worried about him, but if that person with Feng Fei is on the same level as her, then it will be dangerous for Mo Nian to fight against both of them. Lu Zongying couldn't help being worried. If it was a 1-against-1, Mo Nian should be able to run even if he couldn't beat Feng Fei. But if he was surrounded, he wouldn't have a chance to run. Alright, take care. I'm going right now. Long Chen nodded. Waving goodbye, he continued on his way. He saw quite a few scars from battles along the way, and he also saw some disciples from the divine families. Those disciples were clearly surprised upon seeing him. He also saw the 3rd Legion's commander in the distance. When the commander saw Long Chen, he shot up. However, he didn't actually attack in the end. Ignoring him, Long Chen continued on his way. With them all being in the 4th step, he no longer cared about them. As Long Chen sped off, he used his divine sense to keep an eye on the 3rd commander. He saw that the latter had taken out a jade tablet. Most likely, he was reporting his location. Oof, the divine families really are treacherous. They're afraid of me fighting over the treasures? Then let me see just what kind of treasures are worth being so careful. Long Chen snorted and continued on his way. After a day's worth of travel, a giant ball of clouds appeared ahead of him. This is the place. The giant clump of clouds covered up whatever was inside, but it was possible to hear some vague dragon roars coming from within. Those clouds were no ordinary clouds. They were filled with immortal qi. It seemed that there was a kind of mysterious law protecting this place. Based on Tian Xiezi's memories and the marker that Mo Nian had left for him, Long Chen examined the clouds for a moment before diving right in. The moment he entered, he felt as if he had been drawn into a space-time channel. The sound of dragon roars and spatial fragments tore through his ears. A giant drake suddenly charged toward Long Chen, its claws tearing through the space-time channel. Long Chen immediately felt a sensation of mortal danger fill him. A black bone saber cut through its claw and the rest of the drake, cutting it in two. Long Chen was shocked. That drake had definitely been in existence above the Nether Passage realm but had still been instantly killed. He knew that this was a space-time illusion. It seemed that these clouds had recorded fragments of the history that had passed. What he was seeing was nothing more than images of what had happened in the distant past. However, although they were just images, they had their own sound and pressure. The pressure that they replicated was enough to crush ordinary 4th step Nether Passage experts. Not even Samsara power could stop it. The void continued to rumble. Long Chen felt as if his body would be torn apart, but his physical body was strong enough to resist it. Long Chen didn't activate any defenses. He used his body to experience the scenes before him. They were extremely chaotic, and he couldn't even see the battle clearly. He only caught glimpses of torn-up corpses flying. There were corpses of giant dragons, as well as experts from a strange race in black armor with black bone blades. This was a bloody battle of existences above the Nether Passage realm. Dragon blood dyed the ground. For some unknown reason, Long Chen was filled with killing intent toward the experts in black armor. He didn't know whether or not the true dragon essence blood in his veins caused him to be fond of the dragon race and hate their enemies. Suddenly, the visions faded and everything fell silent. Long Chen appeared in a desolate world. The scent of blood hung in the air, along with the aura of decay. Looking around, Long Chen's heart pounded. White bones filled this world. Every single one of these bones was gigantic. They were half buried, with the other half piercing into the sky. A light crack rang out beneath his feet when he took a step. He saw that a withered bone had been shattered by his step. He didn't know what bone it was, but it was bigger than a house. Long Chen rubbed one of the fragments and muttered to himself, "It wasn't the erosion of time that weakened them." The divine runes of the bone were taken away, resulting in its power being stolen. Ahead of him was a dragon skull. Examining it, he found that the skull had been pierced by something, and the dragon core had been taken away. The divine runes within the bones had also been absorbed. Not one thing of value had been left behind. Although he was a bit disappointed, he assumed that this was normal. If there had been any treasures here, they would have long since been taken by others. Yen didn't leave any further marks. Either he didn't have the time, or there was no time. Long Chen observed the surroundings. After not finding anything that Yen could have left for him, he began to carefully advance. Hidden Dragon Star Soul Grass. Long Chen suddenly noticed a strange grass covered in scale-like patterns growing within one of the dragon bones. In a land of hidden dragons, where the soul star remains, a spirit grass can grow, becoming a divine dragon medicine. Long Chen's heart pounded hard. A recording of this precious medicinal ingredient appeared in his mind. It seems that this dragon must have been extremely powerful when alive. Even after death, not all of its power was sucked away. The remaining energy was enough to give birth to a hidden dragon star soul grass. This was an exceedingly rare medicinal ingredient. It was said to only have a possibility of growing within a dragon cemetery. When a dragon died and their soul essence merged with astral energy, this grass could sprout. It was impossible to grow on the Martial Heaven continent. Hence, even the ancient records of the Martial Heaven continent didn't have it. Long Chen only recognized it due to the pill sovereign memories. Its extract could be absorbed, and after that, the dragon race would view the one absorbing it as a member of their race. They would not be attacked, and they might even be able to control a divine dragon. The dragon race mentioned here referred to the true dragon race, so it did not mean that the other dragon races with impure bloodlines would respect it the same way. Perhaps they might be a bit more amicable, but there were records of dragon races killing each other. The reason that Long Chen was so excited over it was because he could refine it into the Dragon Body Star Soul pill. This was a pill that could transform a person's constitution and allow them to grow infinitely closer to a dragon's power. The Dragon Blood warriors had absorbed the essence blood of the metal-devouring evil dragon. After cultivating the Dragon Blood body tempering art, their physical bodies had grown many times stronger, making them into true Dragon Blood warriors. However, there was still an immense difference between their bodies and the bodies of actual dragons. This pill could change their constitutions, fully activating their dragon blood to reforge their bodies. Long Chen also believed that it would allow them to cultivate faster and easier with the Dragon Blood body tempering art. The reason his body was so powerful was because his body had been completely reforged by the Azure Dragon Essence Blood. If the Dragon Blood warriors had the Dragon Body Star Soul pills, they could also reforge their physical bodies like him. However, reforging the physical body required constantly tearing it apart and rebuilding it. It would be a very painful process. I wonder if I can grow it in the primal chaos space? The hidden dragon soul star grass only grew within the corpses of dragons, relying on the leftover energy from when the dragon was alive to survive. Once it left the corpse, it wouldn't be long before it withered. Long Chen carefully transplanted the grass into the primal chaos space and saw that it didn't show any signs of withering. Instead, it seemed slightly invigorated. The primal chaos bead really is my greatest treasure. Long Chen almost cried out in excitement. The primal chaos bead's power was truly heaven-defying. Long Chen carefully plucked off a few roots and found that those roots continued to grow. In other words, he could grow them in large numbers. However, their growing speed was too slow. Who knew how long it would take before he had enough? I'll need to find some corpses, thought Long Chen. Without powerful corpses to feed the primal chaos space, let alone the hidden dragon star soulgrass, he wouldn't even be able to grow the heavenly Qilin demon trees. Long Chen continued onward, finding more and more skeletons. However, he didn't find more of the hidden dragon star soulgrass as the conditions for it to grow were too stringent. The fact that he had obtained one was a pure coincidence. At first, he saw only dragon bones, but he gradually started to see bones of some other race. Their bones didn't seem different from human bones, but they were black and looked like steel. They didn't even let off their own people. Long Chen examined a few of those corpses and saw sharp penetrating wounds. Based on the position, it seemed that they had been stabbed through their hearts. These bones had their divine runes taken away as well, and were extremely weak. Just a touch caused them to shatter. Should I use a soul art to see if I can dredge up some fragments? Long Chen started to form hand seals. Are you crazy? You want to intentionally infect yourself with more karma? Do you not want to live any longer? Cursed evil moon suddenly. What is there to look at? These are the heaven-devouring Black Armor Corps, a race that devours others to advance. They possess a devouring law similar to my dark evil dragon race's devouring ability. The heaven-devouring Black Armor Corps? What are they? I've never heard of them before, asked Long Chen. There are lots of things that you haven't heard of before. Let me tell you, don't randomly look at things that you shouldn't look at. If you don't want to be chased down by the heaven-devouring Black Armor Corps during your next heavenly tribulation, you shouldn't look for trouble. Who knows if they have some curse waiting for others to touch when they die? Perhaps you might not even last until your next tribulation, said Evil Moon. Evil Moon clearly had an understanding of this race, and it even seemed to be afraid of them. With Long Chen's spiritual strength, he could grasp remnants of auras and laws to look at some fragments of space-time in the surroundings. However, that would invoke karma. It was different from the scenes that he had seen when entering. This was him actively attempting to draw them to himself. Normally, a passive glance wouldn't invoke karma. Don't bother with these meaningless things. This 10,000 dragon nest could only be made by someone on the level of a dragon king capable of subduing 10,000 dragons. Hurry up and investigate the depths. I sense a powerful aura, but it's been covered up. I'm sure that there's a treasure inside, said Evil Moon impatiently. Long Chen agreed and decided to speed up. As he passed by the countless bones, a giant entity appeared up ahead. It was like a star floating in the sky. That's the dragon nest. We're almost in, shouted Evil Moon. Long Chen quickened his pace. The closer he got, the more apprehensive he grew. Dragon might exuded from the nest, quickening his blood flow. Various dragon scales were starting to appear. Control your aura, or the one inside the dragon nest will sense you, ordered Evil Moon. Long Chen slowed down. At this time, he noticed that it was like a spherical gem. There were countless holes throughout it, and it seemed like a maze. Following Evil Moon's directions, Long Chen entered one of the caves. As soon as he entered, the world changed. He got into a new space, and before he could even see his surroundings, a black bone blade slashed toward him. An evil aura exploded. The sharp blade brought with it an aura of death. However, this blade was not solid. It was a spiritual attack. Boom. The blade fell and Long Chen's soul shook. A wave of dizziness almost overwhelmed him. Fortunately, his spiritual strength had grown stronger with the advancement of his cultivation base. Despite being caught off guard, the attack was quickly erased once it entered his mind-sea. Long Chen slashed Evil Moon in the air in front of him but didn't hit anything. He also didn't see anything. Is there a ghost? Asked Long Chen. What ghost? This is the resentful spirit of the heaven-devouring Black Armor Corps. Their souls were bound here upon dying and remained for tens of thousands of years. They'll naturally attack when they encounter living creatures. But their spiritual strength is famous for how crap it is, so it's no danger to you. Continue onward, said Evil Moon. Long Chen sent his spiritual strength out to keep an eye on the surroundings. Although this attack hadn't been fatal, it didn't feel good. No wonder the Divine Family's ordinary disciples were not allowed inside. With the space-time channel being such a barrier, along with the attacks of the resentful spirits here, even the Dragon Blood warriors probably couldn't enter. Another black figure quickly attacked Long Chen as he advanced. This time he saw it clearly. It was a strange life form in black armor attacking with a saber. With his guard up, Long Chen easily summoned a spiritual shield. The black figure smashed into the shield and exploded, vanishing without a trace. Curious, why don't I see their actual corpses? Asked Long Chen. Do you know the origin of the 10,000 dragon nest? Asked Evil Moon. It also seemed curious. No. All right, I forgot that the Martial Heaven continent has lost many inheritances after multiple tribulations. Let me put it to you this way. The 10,000 dragon nest is formed of countless dragon bones. A dragon king will always create a 10,000 dragon nest after being born, and the foundation of this nest is the dragon king's blood bone. The dragon king will then constantly beat powerful opponents and use their bones for the nest. This nest is no ordinary construction. It is the result of the dragon race's divine abilities. In other words, this nest can be considered to be alive. It will constantly absorb the corpses of other experts to strengthen itself. Furthermore, it is the strongest trump card of the Dragon King. It can be likened to a divine item created by a human. This divine item might be weak at the start, but as time passes, it will constantly be strengthened. The 10,000 dragon nest is also a great source of energy for the Dragon King. It is capable of offense and defense. In my battle against Yun Shang, if I had had my 10,000 dragon nest, I wouldn't have been beaten so miserably, said Evil Moon hatefully. Long Chen was startled. So Evil Moon had also reached the level of a dragon king. No wonder it had such an understanding of this nest. Then that means that the corpses were absorbed by the 10,000 dragon nest? Does that mean that the Dragon King is still alive? Probed Long Chen. That is impossible to say. Even if the Dragon King is dead, the 10,000 dragon nest would continue to act according to its natural functions. For example, even if a human dies, their astral space can remain and become a minor world. That minor world will simply not possess a master. It's still too early to say anything for sure. You should go check the core. If your luck is good, you might be able to find a treasure. Boom. Long Chen was attacked once more, but this time Long Chen didn't wait to be struck, instead striking first with a spiritual sword. It was precisely as Evil Moon said. These resentful souls were not strong enough to pose any threat to him. The 10,000 dragon nest is something only powerful members of the dragon race are qualified to enter. They can absorb its energy to cultivate and benefit from the Dragon King. It is also the crux of a Dragon King's breakthrough. Once the dragon nest has reached a certain level, the Dragon King can attempt to break through the next barrier to a higher realm. Based on the aura of this nest, it has reached the middle level, but it's a far cry from my 10,000 dragon nest. Despite that, there is definitely something good at the core. The main question is whether or not it still remains or if someone else got to it first, said Evil Moon with anticipation. Long Chen followed the passageway he was in. The path suddenly became spacious up ahead, and there was an ancient forest. Did I end up transported out? Long Chen was startled. He had felt like he had sensed some spatial fluctuations just now. This ancient forest extended further than he could see. The aura was also completely different from the 10,000 dragon nest. No, this is one of the nest's spatial worlds. A dragon can cultivate here. There are countless spaces like this, each connected to multiple entrances like a maze. There is only one main path that the Dragon King goes through, and that path cannot be entered by others. I've chosen the next most direct path for you, so don't waste time. Before entering, I saw several entrances that showed signs that others had entered, urged Evil Moon. Long Chen continued onward according to Evil Moon's directions. After half an incense stick's worth of time, he saw a battlefield. There were countless corpses littering the ground. He saw a dozen dragon skeletons that looked a bit off, looking somewhat like tigers instead of dragons. Their mouths were long, and it was impossible to guess what their original forms were like. Other than those skeletons, there were thousands of black corpses. Long Chen finally saw what the heaven-devouring black armor core looked like. They were like humans but covered in black scales. Their scales had runes on them, but they were now faint and powerless. Their foreheads were a bit wide, and they had 2 canine teeth. Their bodies were thin, and their eyes had vanished. An aura of decay and darkness still came from them. Examining the battlefield, Long Chen didn't find anything useful. Rather than wasting more time here, he continued onward. These spaces were given to certain experts amongst the dragon race with a set level of status. The one who lived here belonged to the dragon cat race. They aren't especially powerful, but they are quick as lightning and possess a powerful domain divine ability. That was why they were able to slay so many of the heaven-devouring black armor core. Using the terms of your martial heaven continent, they are above the Nether Passage realm, said Evil Moon. Above the Nether Passage realm. Long Chen was shaken inside. As he continued onward, Evil Moon said, the 10,000 dragon nest can be considered to be a bit similar to your Tian. You have 108,000 astral spaces, while the dragon nest also has countless spaces for dragons to cultivate. If the dragon nest was allowed to limitlessly grow, it would give birth to its own cosmos. Just how terrifying would it be if it possessed the power of an entire cosmos? Long Chen, I'm telling you this because I don't understand your 9-star hegemon body art, but I'm sure it is a heaven-defying cultivation technique. If I compare it to the dragon nest, I'd have to say that your 9-star hegemon body art is even more terrifying. Now I understand why you are always plagued with setbacks and bad luck. You were originally just an ordinary person in the mortal world, but your fate was changed by the 9-star hegemon body art. Even now, I cannot see your golden fate lines, nor do I dare to use any of my evil dragon race's oracle techniques to predict your future. Even my own fate became impossible to predict at some point. Moreover, my past is now sealed within my memories. This is why Yunshang was waiting for you, why Emoli called you brother. My guess is that due to the 9-star hegemon body art, they have bet everything on you. You are not infected by the karma of the sovereigns. Your future will only grow more difficult, so I have to warn you not to restrict yourself. The words that Evil Moon spoke were very simple, but it also kept a few words back. Long Chen could understand what it was saying. Don't worry, if I see an opportunity to get stronger, I'll grasp it with my full power. No one will be able to stop me. Long Chen took a deep breath and nodded. Good. Then go left, said Evil Moon. They very quickly appeared within a twisting space. Long Chen stepped inside, and the passageway appeared once more. Long Chen sped down it, going through over 10 of those spatial worlds. Every one of those spatial worlds was filled with skeletons and corpses. Whatever battle had gone down here had been intense. The further he went, the stronger the aura of the dragon race's experts was. The remnant laws also grew clearer. Upon entering one of the worlds, he heard the roars and shrieks of the dragons and heaven-swallowing black armor core. It was as if the battle from back then was being reenacted in the present. During normal times, Long Chen would take a pause to feel just how terrifying the battle from back then was, but now Evil Moon was urging him to race through. Eventually, Long Chen couldn't even remember how many of the spatial worlds he had passed. Even his sense of direction had grown muddled. He was relying entirely on Evil Moon to lead the way. Suddenly, the space ahead of him shuddered. A dark world appeared. As soon as he entered, Long Chen's hair stood on end. This world was filled with death and the aura of rot. It felt like just taking a breath could make a person age. Long Chen was about to ask Evil Moon which direction to go when the void above him twisted. A figure appeared, and when he saw that figure, Long Chen immediately shot toward it like an arrow, slashing Evil Moon. The figure had just appeared, and before it could even get a clear look at the surroundings, Evil Moon was already silently slashing toward it. The figure was covered in a black cloak that covered its face. A black aura exuded from its body. It was the corrupt path's mysterious expert, Ye Ming. Long Chen. Ye Ming was startled. He extended a hand, 5 different runes lighting up on his fingertips. Then the 5 runes whirled together into a 5-colored shield. Boom. The shield exploded, but Long Chen's sneak attack was also resolved. It just so happens that I was looking for you. Ye Ming snorted, and his figure suddenly became illusory. He vanished just like that. This was not a simple movement art. He had truly vanished. Even his aura was gone. Long Chen suddenly swung Evil Moon behind him, perfectly meeting a fist. White bone spurs were coming out of the fist. The bone spurs shattered, but Ye Ming's figure was still not present. Long Chen's expression didn't change. Without looking back, he swung Evil Moon to his left rear. Long Chen swung Evil Moon 7 times, every time blocking an attack that came out of nowhere. Ye Ming's figure appeared in the air once more. His face was still covered by his cloak. He snorted. No wonder Tian Xiezi was unable to kill you. I really did underestimate you. I shouldn't have agreed to Tian Xiezi's request. I feel the same way about you. Most teleportations can only be carried out within a specific domain, but you are able to freely teleport within this world that has completely different laws from the Martial Heaven continent, and without summoning a domain at that. You can even merge your aura into the 10,000 dragon nest. As expected of a god's reincarnation. I'm growing more and more interested, said Long Chen with a faint smile. Battle intent grew within him. A god's reincarnation definitely had to relate to many secrets. Perhaps Long Chen could learn a few of the Martial Heaven continent's secrets from Ye Ming. Ye Ming's aura clearly fluctuated upon hearing that. He icily said, Tian Xiezi's loyalty was insincere. Not even death is enough punishment. Ye Ming was enraged. His identity was a secret within the corrupt path. The only one to know of it was Tian Xiezi. He was well aware of Tian Xiezi's abilities. Although Long Chen might possess the power to kill him, it was impossible for Long Chen to obtain Tian Xiezi's secrets. The only possibility was that Tian Xiezi had revealed them himself. This was equivalent to a betrayal to a corrupt god. Let's not waste time. We don't need to make any excuses for fighting. Let me experience just how powerful a god's reincarnation is. Long Chen's divine ring appeared behind him, and 108,000 stars lit up inside of it. The earth was crushed by the pressure. No wonder you could kill Tian Xiezi. So your manifestation has also awoken, said Ye Ming coldly. That starry sky behind Long Chen was taken to be a manifestation by him. Long Chen didn't waste words and slashed Evil Moon down with his full power. This was no divine son, but someone who had once ascended and become a god. It doesn't matter how strong you are. You're still nothing in front of me. Ye Ming snorted, and in the face of Long Chen's attack, he simply stood there. A black manifestation suddenly burst into existence behind him. There were 2 eyes within Ye Ming's manifestation, but other than that, there was only endless darkness. Those eyes seemed to have something dancing within them. Just being looked at by them was enough to make a person feel like their soul was being wrested out of their body. It's dark energy. Evil Moon let out a startled cry. Boom. Long Chen's saber slashed down, but Ye Ming caught his attack with his bare hands. Long Chen felt as if his attack had been sucked away into a vast sea, with all his power vanishing. Devil Eye Soul Snapper. The eyes within Ye Ming's manifestation suddenly grew. It was as if a devil was staring into Long Chen's spiritual sea. Some kind of energy tried to break his soul. This spiritual attack came without any warning. Not good. Long Chen was shocked that Ye Ming's eyes were able to unleash spiritual attacks without warning and through space. This attack caught him off guard. Just as his spiritual strength was suppressed and in danger of being stripped away from his body, the divine gate within his mind sea opened. The divine gate star lit up, and the attack silently vanished. Ye Ming's body shuddered, and he stared at Long Chen in shock. He had thought that this divine ability of his could easily kill Long Chen in an instant when he was caught by surprise. But despite having victory within his grasp, some kind of mysterious power had made his divine ability useless. Boom. In that instant, light exploded out of Evil Moon, blowing away Ye Ming's arms and slashing toward his head. Ye Ming's figure instantly vanished. His teleportation technique had allowed him to escape. However, the hood of his cloak had been destroyed, revealing his true face. Upon seeing his appearance, Long Chen was surprised. Ye Ming looked very young, but his eyes were white as snow. He had no pupils. There were black lines around his eyes, giving off a bizarre and sinister feeling. So even after nirvanic rebirth, you managed to keep a pair of eyes within your manifestation while you cultivated a new pair of eyes. It seems that your plot isn't small. You want to make up for any flaws from your past cultivation? Long Chen looked at Ye Ming observantly. In truth, these words weren't his own but from Evil Moon. As expected, Ye Ming's expression changed. He then smiled. I wouldn't have thought a baby like you would know this much. I was going to keep you alive to distract those fellows from the divine families for me, but it seems that I have to kill you now. A sword appeared in Ye Ming's hand. Its edges were covered in jagged teeth. Those teeth looked chillingly sharp. Long Chen ignored the sword, continuing, in your last life, you cultivated dark energy. Dark energy's main purpose is to devour. But the eyes of your divine ability are clearly lacking enough dark energy, and they even require another kind of energy to restrict the eruption of the dark energy from harming yourself. If you didn't require that second kind of energy to restrict it, your dark energy could have killed me just now. That's why in this life, you are trying to make up for the flaws of your last life by cultivating a new set of eyes. At that time, with two sets of eyes merged together, you will be able to truly control dark energy. Not bad, truly not bad. Who are you? Demanded Ye Ming suddenly. This kind of secret was not something that someone like Long Chen could come into contact with. His gaze locked onto the saber in Long Chen's hands. It's not important who I am. But I must admit, it's impressive that you are trying to replicate the dark race's innate divine abilities. At the present time, there are no flaws in this path of yours. This 10,000 dragon nest has something you need, and very urgently at that, am I right? Evil Moon continued to pass words through Long Chen. Suddenly, the world turned dark. Long Chen felt like he had been tossed into an endless hell. Within this darkness, Long Chen was shocked to find that his own power was being sucked away without his permission. I don't care who you are. Since you know my secret, you must die. Ye Ming's voice resounded through the darkness. A pair of eyes appeared within the darkness, staring at Long Chen. Do you see? This is dark energy, something capable of absorbing the power of all other things in this world. This is the strongest divine ability of my dark evil dragon race. This Ye Ming is a god's reincarnation, and now that he has entered the fourth step of Nether Passage, he has an easy path for himself. Tian Xiezi was only capable of sucking you into his manifestation, but Ye Ming is capable of extending his manifestation. Without needing to suck you inside, you are already within the domain of his manifestation, transmitted Evil Moon to Long Chen. The space around him rumbled. Long Chen didn't know what was happening, but he felt the space around him collapsing and his own energy flying away. Despite doing his best, he couldn't stop his spiritual yuan from being devoured. Long Chen slashed Evil Moon in front of him, managing to block a sword from within the darkness. This attack from Ye Ming wasn't extraordinarily powerful. However, in that instant more of his spiritual yuan flew away. So, dark energy is very powerful. This is practically unbeatable, said Long Chen. Correct. Dark energy can reach an unbeatable level, but I have yet to achieve full control over it. Ye Ming's voice resounded throughout the darkness. By fixing my final flaws, this entire world will belong to my corrupt path. Sovereigns, invaders, they will all be nothing before me. Dark energy is the strongest power within this world. Long Chen, I consider you a true expert, so I'll give you a chance to kill yourself. Long Chen smiled and shook his head. There is no such thing in this world. No matter how great one power is, there will definitely be at least one power that suppresses it. I've come to realize how amazing your dark energy is. I also know how strong the dark evil dragon race is. Evil Moon had its own goal at this moment. It always thought that Long Chen was looking down on it for losing to a sovereign. By exposing Ye Ming's goal, Ye Ming would summon his strongest domain to kill them. Now Long Chen would experience just how strong the dark evil dragon race was. Let's see which one of our worlds is stronger. 5-star battle armor. Long Chen's divine ring shuddered, and 5 stars blazed with light. A majestic aura wildly burst out. 5 stars lit up. Even the darkness could not absorb their light. With the 5-star battle armor active, the darkness could no longer strip away Long Chen's power. His astral spaces unleashed a torrent of power that filled him with strength. This was why, despite being in Ye Ming's domain with his power sucked away, he didn't feel the slightest fear or panic. His power no longer stemmed from the outside world. He was not an Empyrean supported by the heavenly Daos. However, he could get his own energy from his astral spaces. Furthermore, a surprising phenomenon had occurred after his battle with Feng Fei. At that time, his astral spaces had been fully exhausted. But after that, once they had recovered, it felt as if one of their limiters had been broken. Then upon reaching the 4th step, they had grown even stronger and were continuing to grow. Although he couldn't see them growing, he could feel it. The 5 stars grew brighter and brighter, driving the darkness away. Ye Ming's figure was quickly revealed. He was standing in the air, looking coldly at Long Chen. What a cultivation technique. It actually isn't suppressed by my manifestation. Ye Ming's tone was flat. It seemed that he wasn't surprised. I'm not the only one who isn't suppressed by your manifestation. You weren't able to suppress Emo Nien either, were you? Said Long Chen. Emo Nien and Ye Ming had fought and ended in a draw. Under the mediation of the divine families, they had come to a stop. Emo Nien had to have been able to block his dark energy as well, or if this domain was summoned, he would definitely die. All he did was steal a mortal husk. His divine energy doesn't match him at all. If I wanted to kill him, he wouldn't be able to escape my domain. I spared his life because just like you, he is one of my chess pieces. Unfortunately, now I have to get rid of one, said Ye Ming. It just so happens that I was thinking of getting rid of you as well. Long Chen smiled. Ye Ming seemed extremely confident, but Long Chen was also very confident. Ye Ming suddenly attacked. His sword was like a viper. Giant cracks appeared in the void as his sword pierced through space. Meanwhile, black runes lit up on Evil Moon. A dragon roar rang out majestically. 2 divine items clashed, creating an explosion of blinding light and pitch-black darkness. Chaos raged throughout the world along with fragments of spacetime. Long Chen felt like he was being crushed by an entire world. With a roar, scales suddenly covered his body. His power exploded, and a pillar of light erupted out of him. With the Azure Dragon battle armor and the merging with Evil Moon's dragon power, a burst of power tore through Ye Ming's domain. The darkness exploded. No wonder you have such an understanding of dark energy. So your saber was made from the bones of a dark evil dragon. It definitely has a suppressive effect on my domain. Ye Ming retreated, his sharp gaze landing on Evil Moon. Long Chen clenched Evil Moon. The air around him raged with his power. Even without Evil Moon, your domain would be unable to bind me. Long Chen attacked again. He didn't use any magical arts but simply pure power. Excellent. After being in seclusion for tens of thousands of years, I felt rusty. I can stretch my muscles a bit. Ye Ming snorted and swung his jagged sword. The 2 divine items clashed for a second time. Space twisted, forming 2 semicircular worlds around the 2 of them. One was the power of Long Chen's divine ring, while the other was Ye Ming's dark domain. The 2 of them were crashing against each other. Their weapons remained locked together. Every time they shuddered, it caused an explosion in the void. Now you have no power to borrow, right? Let's have a battle with our true abilities. With a final explosion, Long Chen shoved and Ye Ming was knocked back. Long Chen took a deep breath. His aura began to condense. I was also thinking of using your blood as a sacrifice to my divine item to awaken it. Ye Ming's pure white eyes suddenly began to have lines of blood appear within them, making him appear even more frightening. Ye Ming pointed his sword at Long Chen. The two eyes within his manifestation grew. His sword shuddered, and an evil aura exploded out of it as if it had come to life. A ray of sword light shot out. This sword wasn't aimed at Long Chen but at the ground. The earth was instantly torn apart and cut through as easily as tofu. Using your blood as a sacrifice to my sword can count as an honor for you. Ye Ming smiled sinisterly, like a leopard looking at its prey. Ye Ming was just about to strike when his expression suddenly changed. Count yourself lucky. I'll let you live a little while longer. But I don't want to let you live any longer. Long Chen didn't know what Ye Ming was up to, but it seemed that he wanted to run. Long Chen immediately unleashed the attack that he was preparing. Split the heavens 8. Ye Ming's expression changed slightly. A powerful explosion occurred as Long Chen's attack landed. Ye Ming's manifestation exploded, while Ye Ming himself vanished. Long Chen, I'll remember this. Next time I'll cut off your head. Darkness filled the world following the explosion of Ye Ming's manifestation. After the darkness faded, Ye Ming was also gone. The land was a complete mess, and Ye Ming's aura still hung in the air, but he himself was no longer present. What is going on? Asked Long Chen. How was Ye Ming able to so easily slip out of his attack? He had locked onto him with his attack. This is another aspect of dark energy. Ye Ming was unable to devour your attack, but he was able to draw it into his manifestation and cause it to explode in there. However, he also paid a price for it. He underestimated your power, causing him to be injured. We should hurry up as well. The core area of the dragon nest has been opened, that's why he was in such a rush to leave, urged Evil Moon. Long Chen quickly rushed off in the direction that Evil Moon indicated. As he flew through the air, Evil Moon explained that Ye Ming was correct. Dark energy was truly one of the world's strongest powers. However, Ye Ming's dark energy was not true dark energy. It had too many flaws, so in this lifetime, he wanted to cultivate a new pair of eyes. According to Evil Moon, these were a pair of evil eyes, but they had yet to be opened. Evil Moon sensed that those eyes had been nourished by the foundation of the corrupt path's power for tens of thousands of years. Once those eyes opened, they might instantly merge with his original eyes, allowing him to control true dark energy. Evil Moon said that the source of the darkness was a primordial wickedness, which was why the dark evil dragon was the ruler of the evil dragon race. Ye Ming had recognized the primordial wickedness, and he had set everything into motion. Once he became a god, he didn't ascend, instead choosing to die and undergo nirvanic rebirth, all to perfectly control dark energy. Once Ye Ming was in perfect control of the dark energy, then the corrupt path would definitely become the absolute ruler of the martial heaven continent. That included Long Chen. Is dark energy really so powerful? Asked Long Chen. Not everyone has a powerful enough cultivation technique to control dark energy like you. Other than that, don't forget, Ye Ming has become a god. But he chose to not ascend to perfect his dark energy. Before undergoing a nirvanic rebirth, he definitely made countless preparations. He wouldn't just leave a pair of divine eyes. The entire corrupt path is his. The accumulations of years of resources are at his disposal. As for you, do you think a young man in his 20s can compare to the resources gathered by billions of experts over tens of thousands of years? Reminded Evil Moon. Long Chen nodded. Evil Moon was right. Ye Ming had definitely made countless preparations. Perhaps this was the best time to kill him. He is also rushing toward the center of the dragon nest. We'll take a shortcut and see if we can get there ahead of everyone else. It'll all be up to your power. Evil Moon was about to say luck but then decided against it. Boom. After passing through 7 worlds, Long Chen appeared in a giant space with countless white bones. In the distance, he heard zither music containing killing intent. Xiezi was fighting against someone. Long Chen not only heard Xiez's zither, but he also heard the sound of intense fights coming from other regions. Ignore them. They are fighting the resentful spirits, while we bypass them to go to the core of the nest directly, said Evil Moon. Long Chen suppressed his thought of joining with Ziyan and continued in the direction that Evil Moon indicated. Within an empty void lay a circular entity that looked like a honeycomb. According to Evil Moon, that was the core of the 10,000 dragon nest. Just by getting closer to it, Long Chen felt his own essence blood flowing quicker. The dragon blood in your body has formed a resonance with the Dragon King's power. It's just still unclear whether or not this Dragon King was a true dragon, said Evil Moon. Upon entering, Long Chen saw that the passageways were made of white bones. Images of dragons were all along the passageway. Those were not carvings. They seemed to be dragon souls embedded in the walls. The dragons that had died within this nest had their flesh and souls returned to it. It was a calling that made the 10,000 dragon nest grow stronger and stronger. The dragon might was extremely powerful at the core. That sensation was exceptionally intense to Long Chen, who possessed dragon blood. It almost felt like it was going to ignite. If he didn't suppress it, his Azure Dragon battle armor would have automatically activated. It seems that the Dragon King isn't welcoming me, said Long Chen. The dragon race is enormous. The true dragon race is the emperor of the dragon race, and they are few in number. However, there is a natural rebellious nature within members of the dragon race. None of them like to be weaker than the others. Your essence blood came from a true dragon who had just matured into an azure dragon. It is like an emperor who is incredibly weak. Even though it is an emperor, it cannot order around a stubborn general. The Dragon King here definitely won't submit to you because you are too weak. Just take things step by step. Once we reach the center, we'll know what race the Dragon King was from, said Evil Moon. Long Chen nodded and continued. There were countless dragon images on the walls. Their roars resounded through his head. As his blood raged within him, he had an urge to smash apart the dragon nest. His anger began to rise without him being aware of it. When it reached a certain level, Long Chen suddenly realized that the dragon blood was affecting his emotions. The end of the passageway appeared, and there were 9 giant dragon skeletons. Their mouths were open and pointed toward a giant sphere. At this moment, Long Chen realized that he was standing within one of the dragon's eye sockets. So the passageway he had been going through was the body of a dragon. So it's the divine bone spirit dragon race. No wonder the berserk aura isn't very strong, said Evil Moon. What is the divine bone spirit dragon race? How come I've never heard of them? Asked Long Chen. The spirit dragon race is another large branch. The divine bone spirit dragon race is the wisest of that branch. They are very smart, but their combat power isn't exceptional. They have a miraculous ability though, which is to nurture divine bones. The core of this dragon nest must be those 4 divine bones. If they can be obtained, suddenly, the dragon bone beneath Long Chen's feet lit up, causing him to jump. However, it then faded. Startled, he ran out of the eye socket to the top of the dragon head to see a person. Hu Feng. Long Chen hadn't expected to see Hu Feng. Hu Feng, on the other hand, was delighted to see him. It seems that my prediction was correct. Brother Long, you really are my fated benefactor. Long Chen suddenly noticed that the giant die always spinning behind Hu Feng's back was gone. Instead, it was now in his hand, and he seemed to be doing something with it. Brother Long, I will speak honestly. My heavenly fate die was damaged, and I have never been able to repair it. I need to find a heavenly fate bone and extract its essence. This heavenly fate bone is something only the divine bone spirit dragon can produce. Of these 9 divine bone spirit dragons, only one produced the heavenly fate bone that I require. However, even after using dozens of drops of dragon blood that I managed to gather in preparation, I am unable to commune with it. Brother Long, I know that you have true dragon essence blood within your body. It can definitely form a bridge between the heavenly fate bone and the divine bone. I was hoping I could use the dragon blood. I prepared myself to do it so I wouldn't have to trouble you, but Hu Feng was embarrassed to make such a demand. Hu Feng had his own pride. This was his first time begging someone for help. It's just a bit of essence blood. It won't harm my core. Brother Hu, if you're going to act so polite with me, I'll be embarrassed to call on you in my next battle, said Long Chen. Long Chen flicked his finger, causing a drop of essence blood to fly out into the center of the formation diagram beneath Hu Feng's feet. The entire dragon skull began to shine, but after a moment, it stopped. Long Chen knew that this meant that his essence blood didn't have enough energy to awaken it. Long Chen sent out 3 more drops. The dragon skull grew increasingly bright. Countless runes began to light up throughout it. 30 drops later, Hu Feng was too embarrassed to let it continue. He hadn't expected it to require so much energy. At this rate, it would really affect Long Chen, which could be fatal in this dangerous place. Before he could say anything though, Long Chen waved his hand. You can't just give up midway. I feel like it's coming soon. After 18 more drops of his essence blood, the skull shuddered, and a ray of divine light came out of the formation diagram. The divine light was incomparably sacred. Just looking at it calmed the soul. Hu Feng placed his heavenly fate die within its light. As if immersed in sunlight, it began to slowly spin. A certain radiance came from it as it began to manifest the heavenly Daos. Brother Long, there are no words I could use to thank you for this favor. If you need anything in the future, just tell me. Hu Feng cupped his fists solemnly. I'm glad to hear it. Remember to come cheer us on in the next battle. Long Chen laughed. Since Hu Feng's matter had been settled, he didn't waste any further time. He jumped off the skull and flew toward the sphere at the center. Upon jumping into the sphere, he found himself in a strange world. This place was a barren desert. At the heart of the desert was a giant dragon coiled atop an altar. It's dead. Evil Moon sighed. It was unable to sense any vitality from that dragon. Long Chen flew over and also didn't sense any vitality. However, its scales still emitted some divine radiance. I don't think it's dead yet. Perhaps there's a chance to save it, said Long Chen. It's useless. The flame of its dragon core has started to extinguish. We were too late. If it was still alive, then with its intellect, it would have given all its remaining power to us. Now though, we'll have to think of our own ways to take it. This divine bone spirit dragon has exhausted all its energy defending against the outside world. I'm going to the source down below to extract that energy. I can strengthen myself and also see if I can break free of Yunshang's seal. Then I would be able to unleash my power without the limitations of your cultivation base. There are 4 primordial divine bones on the 4 corners of the altar. They are the foundational sources of the world: earth, water, fire, wind. They are also the core of the 10,000 dragon nest. Those are priceless treasures. For a human to become a sovereign, they must have a spirit root, spirit blood, and spirit bone that reaches the necessary level. These 4 divine bones are the strongest divine treasures for condensing a spirit bone. Now you should understand just how important they are, said Evil Moon. Long Chen's heart shook. Every human could be said to possess a spirit root and spirit blood. It was simply the quality that varied from person to person. It could be made up for with various resources, but he had never heard of a treasure capable of giving a spirit bone to someone without one. However, Evil Moon was saying that these 4 primordial divine bones could allow a person to produce a spirit bone. That meant that they were truly heaven-defying treasures. It's unfortunate that the Dragon King is dead. The divine bones and blood pool are protected by their own laws. I'm not exactly sure how to take them either. Time is pressing, so I'm going to the source. The dragon source is already starting to wither with the Dragon King's death. If it's not taken now, it's going to fade away. Evil Moon transformed into a streak of black light that pierced into the ground, vanishing. Long Chen didn't know what it was using to absorb that dragon source. Long Chen flew onto the altar. He saw 4 platforms on the 4 corners, each with a fist-sized bone on top of it. Those bones were like jade and shone with divine light. It was possible to see a rune within the bones. That rune. Upon spotting one of those runes, Long Chen's heart trembled. He recognized it. It was the flame rune he had obtained in the immemorial path. Using it as the core, he had created the World Annihilation Flame Lotus. Although the creation of the Flame Lotus technique had been a success, Long Chen had never managed to fully investigate the secrets of the rune. Based on what he knew though, It was one of the building blocks of this world, the most primordial rune of the 4 kinds of energy that supposedly first appeared in the world. Long Chen slowly got closer. Suddenly, light blazed from the platform, and a dragon roar rang out. Long Chen felt a wave of power knock him back. Long Chen was blown into the distance. When he looked again, he saw that the 4 platforms were blazing with divine light at the same time. So the 4 platforms are linked. Long Chen was startled, and his expression became grave. Xiezi had told him that such a formation needed to be approached and breached from all 4 directions at the same time. Without some special technique, he wouldn't be able to do anything by himself. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.